But everyone has a different story to tell. Shell, which says it's losing it.
The Tampa market. Staggering rise.
Country in Northeast Africa, precisely on the Horn of Africa.
All right. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome again. This is the VCC. I am your host, as usual, Frank Mauba. All right. So as you come on, as usual, please share the live and also ask someone to subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Facebook, and also Twitter, so that anytime we go live, you will get an opportunity to catch us live instead of the recording. However, if you don't have the time to watch the live, you can still watch the recording, as we urge you to do so, because this time is very important in our life. If we don't take the chances, if we don't make opportunity out of the chances that we have now, it's not going to be easy, I can tell you, because the forces that are against our progress will reinforce, and it's going to be bad for the next generation. For that, I can tell you, if we fail, if this generation fail to free Africans, if this generation fail to liberate the African continent and all African nations, whether on the continent or out of the continent, if this generation fail, the next generation will catch very tough time, and they're going to blame us. The generation that came after us, they did well because they stood and they fought hard with the limited technology they have. They stood and they fought hard with the limited technology they have, with the limited, weapons they have, with the limited knowledge they have. They stood firm. But here it is with this generation. The knowledge are there, the opportunity are there, the technologies are there. And if we fail, if this generation fail, the next generation, they're going to catch hell. That I can tell you. Now, please, if you come on, hit the like, hit the love button, and subscribe, and also share. Now, today's topic, it says Africa wouldn't be the next Ukraine to save NATO, because NATO or Ukraine did not save NATO. Okay, Ukraine failed and Ukraine did not save NATO. So the next option for the imperialists, the colonizer, the next option, okay, the next option for them is Africa, because they depend on Ukraine and Ukraine failed. At some time, they said Ukraine was fighting for Europe, Ukraine was fighting for the West, Ukraine was fighting for America. Now Ukraine has failed. So they have now turned to the African continent for Africa to fight for them. Now, last week, we said something about bourgeoisie, and we tried to explain it for this generation to understand, because most of our folks, even the younger one, the older one, they do not understand when you say bourgeoisie or when you say puppets. They don't understand. And we tried to explain it, okay, puppet or bourgeoisie just means loyalty, where your loyalty lies, okay? Where your interest lies, all right? So when we say African leaders are puppets, we are saying African leaders' loyalty lies with the colonizer, lies with the imperialist, lies with the oppressor. When we say puppet or bourgeoisie, we mean people that the African leaders, some of the African leaders, most of them are willing to die for, are willing to waste blood, African blood, for the colonizer, for Europe and for America. And it is clear, folks, it is clear. When we call the United States name, it's not like we hate the United States, but it is the truth of what we are learning and what we are saying. The United States does not care about Africa and African people's life. Europe does not care about Africa and African people's life. If they care, they wouldn't have enslaved African. Now, if they care, okay, they did it, right? If they care, after African people fought for, how they call it, for freedom, not independent, but for freedom, what did they do? What did they do? When they found out that African labor, okay, selling African people on the market, on their market, was no longer producing, right? And when they found out that African people in America and in Europe stood firm and fought for independence, what did they do? The next thing, they went on the African continent. So if they care for African life, they wouldn't have gone on the African continent. If they care for African life, they wouldn't have gone to Berlin, to Germany, and sat down. Look, folks, whenever someone sat down or sit down, all right, and have a plan on what to do for you, right? It is something premeditated. It is something that they plan to do it. No matter what you do, those people will never reconcile with you, will never recognize with you. They are your enemies. Whenever someone sit down and plan something to harm you, it takes a great deal of energy. I mean, energy, to put energy into something, especially to destroy someone's life. It's not something easy to take away someone's life. That energy, it is a very evil energy, okay? To sit down and plan about how to destroy someone, how to kill someone. That energy is very evil because it is a destructive energy. For white people, for European, for Westerner to sit down in a conference for 6 months on how they're going to treat African, how they're going to kill African, how they're going to rape African, all right? How they're going to dehumanize African, how they're going to torture African, how they're going to change your way of life, okay? It take a force of evil. It take a force of evil, I mean demonic evil, to do that. So these folks, they don't care. So when we say puppet, bourgeoisie, right, we are saying Africans that gave their loyalty instead of giving it to Africans and to African people. But Africans that gave their loyalty to Europe and America, the people that colonized, that laid, that raped, that dehumanized, and up to this time, they failed to apologize. They failed to recognize their crime against humanity. The worst crime against humanity ever committed against Black people, against African people, is the crime of America and the crime of Europe. But they are yet to come to talk about it. So Africans that give their loyalty to America and Europe of such, they are the one we call puppets. They are the one we call bourgeoisie. Now, the topic says Africa wouldn't be the next Ukraine. Folks, it has been confirmed. It has been confirmed, all right, that America is in war with Africa. This is not opinion, all right? This is not opinion. It's what we put together and it's what we see then, hear then, displacing. Europe and America have decided to fight Africa, to fight Africans. Through ECOWAS, it has been confirmed. Through the puppet, through the bourgeoisie, through those stupid and dumb African leaders, America and Europe have decided to fight Africans through ECOWAS. And they say, this is not made up, and they say they're going to do everything they can. This is not a made up story. They're going to do everything they can It is so painful, man. It is so painful for Africans to have seen what we have been through with Europe and America. And yet, they have not learned their lesson. And yet, in fact, they themselves have said to America and Europe, we will kill Africans. This is not a made-up story. That's what they said. And we're going to see it. I am not bringing article because if I bring article, maybe you may think somebody just wrote it. I am breaking videos of these dumb and stupid Africans saying they are ready and willing to kill Africans for Europe and America. This is not a made-up story. That's what they say. They are willing to waste African blood. And they will have no regret to waste African blood. Their loyalty is to Europe and America and not Africa and not for African people. This is not a made-up story. Let's get into it. But before we come there, folks, as usual, we're going to build out a story before we get to those statements. All right? So let's see the first thing we're going to talk about here. So we're going to see first how the West have already started the war against Africa. The West have already started, Europe and America have already started the war. The war have begun already with the terrorists. We have been saying it over and over and over. Europe and America are the people supporting the terrorists, supporting Boko Haram, supporting the ISIS in Africa. That is why they have their bases there. And you know, they have been confirmed. They're not hiding it no more because they have come to a point they are doing everything. So let's get to the first video here. All right? Let's get to the first video. Now, this is the first video, all right? And you're going to see how Niger have been attacked just within the time period of the coup, okay? Leading up to current, just within the time period of the coup and leading up to current, all right? At the time, there was no coup. At the time, there was no coup, all right? With American bases, Canadian, German, the British, right? Name the rest. Okay, at the time of their base or bases in Niger, there was no attack on Niger. But by the time the interest of the West is threatening, then the terrorists and the ISIS and the Al Qaeda and the Boko Haram are now coming. So let's see here. The war has begun already. America, Europe, they are already fighting Africa even before they are pushing ECOWAS.
least 17 soldiers have been killed in an ambush. The military leadership says that its troops were attacked by an armed group near the Tillaberi region. It also said its forces killed several of the fighters. Ahmed Idris is in the Nigerian town of Katsina. That's near the border with Niger. Ahmed, this broke just a few moments ago. What do you know at this early stage?
Well, it's a continuation of the violence we see on the Niger, Mali and Niger, Burkina Faso border. This attack happened days after another one that killed several Nigerian soldiers on the border with Burkina Faso. So it looks like the whole thing is spreading faster. Now, that's one of the main concerns of security analysts in the region about the continuing growth of coups in the region. If you look at Mali and Burkina Faso, despite the presence of mercenaries like Wagner on their territory, they still continue to face attacks from these armed groups allied to Al-Qaeda and ISIL that have been operating in that region for a long time. And now with the current attack, this is the 5th attack, by the way, in less than 3 weeks since the coup in Niger Republic. And the more these continue to go on, the less credible the statement by the military authorities in Niger that they have overthrown Mohamed Bazoum simply because of the deteriorating security situation in Niger. So it's undermining their credibility as a force or as a unit.
So you heard that, right? This is the 5th attack. Now, folks, listen to this, okay? We're bidding the story out, and you're going to hear the voice of America, I mean the United States, speaking, not in fear of what they are doing and what they have already planned and what is already going on. Okay? Now, you heard the journalist what he said. This is the 5th attack on Niger since the coup. This is the 5th attack. Now, here is the question. So are you telling me all along the United States base have been in Niger, or they stay in Niger, or the United States have been in control of Niger? At that time, Bazoum, their popular, how they call it, government was in power, right? The Canadian military there, the British military there, which other one? The German, okay? All of them in our area. There was no terrorist attack. But the moment their puppet government have been removed and their interests have been threatening, that's the time the Boko Haram, the Al-Qaeda, the terrorists, the ISIS, that's the time they are coming to fight. So are you telling me the same terrorists America said, Europe said they will help Africans to fight? These are the same terrorists now coming and fighting Africans, fighting the Nigerian army. After American interests have been threatened or European interests have been threatened, so the terrorists are now coming to fight for the interests of America, the interests of Europe. So are they telling us they are the one keeping the terrorists in Africa? They are the one keeping the terrorists because it happened. The moment again at that time when Mali took out France and told France to leave, terrorists start attacking Mali. And then to the extent the aircraft, the military aircraft that Russia gave to Mali, one of them, they used drum. Now, where terrorists coming from to have drum? Okay? To bomb Mali to the extent they destroy one of the aircrafts that Russia gave to Mali. Again, look at what is going on. So anytime these things happen, that's the time the terrorists will come to attack. But when the French army were in our area, okay, there was no drum fire at the military. But when the French left, when they drove them out, they went to Niger, then they start using drum. So are they telling us again those drum came from Niger, where America have a largest drone base in Africa, there where they sat down and used their drone and fire at the Malian aircraft that Russia gave them, and they destroyed one of them because they said it was drone that was used to destroy the aircraft. Did you see that? So right after their interest in Niger have been threatened, then again the Al-Qaeda now come in to fight the Boko Haram, the terrorists, the ISIS. Now they are not coming in to fight. Fifth attempt since after the coup. Are you seeing, folks? These folks are already at war with Africa. While they are using ECOWAS, they are also working behind the scene. If ECOWAS do not work, they're going to use those terrorists to work. They're going to use those terrorists to work. How come all of a sudden the terrorists are now fighting after their interests have been threatening? Does that mean America and Europe have been supporting terrorists on the African continent? They are the one keeping the terrorists on the African continent. And in fact, it was proven by the Nigerian military 2012-2013 that the French NGO Médecins Sans Frontières were the ones supplying, giving supply to Boko Haram in Nigeria. 2012-2013, it was proven by the Nigerian military that Médecins Sans Frontières were giving support to Boko Haram. They are the one supporting, because there should be no reason that since after the coup, 5 attempts have been made in Niger by the Al-Qaeda or by the terrorist group, and 17 soldiers have been killed. Now, they just said 17 soldiers, but equally so, what they did not mention is innocent life have been taken. Let's go to ECOWAS, this useless organization. You watch and see African dying, but you say you hate Africans. You love Europe and America. You love Europe and America to suffer Africans, to struggle Africans. You love to see Africans die. You love to see Africa in poverty. ECOWAS, this useless organization. ECOWAS said they love to see Africa in poverty. They love to see African be insulted. Folks, we are not making a story. In fact, let's continue here. Let's continue with the video.
Unit or as a government to fight insecurity in the region. And that's the concern of many people. There are people, especially security analysts, who think that the continuing spread of coups in the region will embolden armed groups. And that is what we continue to see since the coup in Mali and then the coup in Burkina Faso as well. Now Niger is suffering the same fate.
Ahmed, it bears repeating this fundamental point that you made, that this latest coup, and it was the case with previous coups in Mali as well, this latest coup was justified officially on the premise that the now deposed president had not done a good job of fighting the insurgent groups. And as you rightly pointed out, there have been multiple attacks since the coup took place. Do we know if the junta has changed anything to its military readiness or to its tactics to effectively fight these insurgent groups?
I think rather than improve the security situation, it has even gotten worse. Remember, the Americans and the French have been training French forces, especially the Americans, but with the suspension of such partnership or agreements with the Nigerian forces, it makes life a lot more difficult. It will be difficult for Niger now to source for equipment, to source for the weaponry, to deal with the rising cases of attacks by these armed groups in the Sahel. And then, of course, the concern is that Niger doesn't have enough resources to go and source these weapons or other technical advice outside the country. It may have to rely on countries like Mali and Burkina Faso for expertise and also support from the mercenaries group.
Now, folks, let me make some clarification here, okay? If America and Europe, they are using Africans to go kill Africans, and Africans are proving tough to echo and say, if you come to kill us, to fight, you are coming to kill your own brother, your own mother, your own sister, your own nephew, your own cousin, and your own Africans. If America is doing that, and if America is known of training Africans to kill Africans, if America and Europe, if they are known of training Africans to overthrow African governments, if America and Europe are known of creating proxy war in Africa, if America and Europe are known, okay, of working to destabilize Africa, right? If they are known of killing democratic leader, what do you think? Do you think are they not capable of supporting a terrorist? Do you think are they not capable of giving ammunition? Do you think are they not capable? In fact, they might be the one training the terrorists. If they have been training Africans purposely to remove government that are not in line with their policy, with their foreign policy, what do you think? Are they not capable of supplying or training insurgency or training terrorist groups? I'm just asking a question. Look beyond, think beyond. If they are capable of doing these things, training Africans to go remove government that are not in line with Europe and America's self-interest policy. Okay? Think about that. Think about that. Even this government that have been overthrown, the entire Africa, the entire Niger, they are saying they support the coup. But America was so-called democracy. What says she believes in democracy? These are the people that are saying they support the coup and they don't want for Bazoum to be to reinstill him, right? But America is saying they should reinstill him. Is that democracy? Now you should understand when it comes to the interests of America, they can go to the length and breadth of doing anything. That is why they've been training other Africans to kill other Africans, to remove other Africans, to threaten other Africans. That is why America has been training to create instability in Africa, okay? By training forces, because first of all, America have trained terrorists. If America can go ahead to train people so that those people can be used for a purpose of removing democratic government, that means America have been training terrorists. That means America is supporting the terrorists. That's terrorism. That's terrorist acts. By training people purposely to remove government who are not in the policy guideline of America, you are threatening, you are putting fear in other nations, in other people, in other citizens, in other government. That is terrorist acts. So that in itself, America, it is a proven fact that she has been creating, supporting terrorist activities on the African continent. Even the government or the joint that removed Bazoum, he was trained. They were trained by America. America have been supporting terrorists. Look, folks, if America can do these things, what do you think about the terrorists, the ISIS, the Boko Haram? They are the ones supporting those people and giving ammunition to those people.
mercenary groups that have been operating in these two countries. But how much can they give? How long will that be? Simply because they too are facing a similar problem. They're trying as much as they can to rein in these attacks on their territory, and we don't see much progress in that regard. They continue to witness these, and I think what will happen in the next few months or so, if this coup survives it, will be public anger directed at the coup plotters in Niger Republic, because people will start questioning the credibility of their allegations that Bazoum has failed to rein in insecurity in that country, and it's happening to them. So basically, the reason for the coup, one of the main reasons of the coup, may have been completely eroded.
Ahmed, something else we want to ask you about. Niger's coup leaders have sent their newly appointed Prime Minister Ali Mahaman Lamine Zain to neighboring Chad for talks, and he met Chad's Prime Minister in N'Djamena. Niger's junta maintains that it's open to talks on solving regional disputes triggered by the coup 3 weeks ago. What?
Now, sorry, folks. Let me add a little bit here. Now, the same jointed government or administration, right? That ECOWAS say they should go on a diplomatic route. Is that not diplomatic? The people have appointed their needed prime minister. Okay? Why is ECOWAS not going by it? But ECOWAS is saying they should put their Bazoum. So if you put their Bazoum, who is Bazoum serving? The people. The people say they don't want him. Why will you put somebody in power that the people do not want? Why will you put somebody in power that the people don't need? So put him there to carry America and Euro selfish interest policy. The people say they don't want him. They remove him. And then the people put in their new prime minister. Now you say you give the, in fact, the time you give the people have worked overtime. And they have appointed their new prime minister. Oh, so you don't want that new prime minister because that prime minister have not yet been identified as America a puppet or Europe puppet or America bourgeoisie. So you don't like him. But let's say this may have agreed to be America puppet or bourgeoisie. Then you will agree for this person to sit. But because this man have not yet been, or America have not yet seen this guy, okay, or have a conversation with this guy, so you don't accept. But you say, let's you go the civilian route, okay, to bring a civilian government. Now the people brought in a prime minister, their newly elected prime minister, that is okay, this is the man we want. And then you say, no, you don't want it. They should put Bazoum there. The Bazoum, the people say they don't want. When America said that they didn't want Trump, they said Trump supported insurgency on the Capitol building. Today, is Trump not still in, how they call it, court for that? Is Trump not in court for that? Did you see Africa saying America should put Trump there? America should allow Trump? Did you see Africa saying anything? America, you are not a god of this war. You have been a colonizer to this war. You have been a killer to this war. You have been an oppressor to this war. You have been a suppressor to this war. That is what you are.
What can we make of this visit to Chad, Ahmed?
It could be two things. First, of course, is to pull more countries, more friends on the side of the military regime in Niamey. And secondly, also to sort of keep the hope that negotiations to end the crisis diplomatically is possible. Now, the Prime Minister is there. We are not sure exactly what message he took to President Idris Deby, Mohamed Idris Deby. But remember, Mohamed Idris Deby was the first envoy who tried to intervene, who tried to mediate between the coup plotters and the economic community of West Africa states to sort this one out or to sort the problem diplomatically, but they turned him back. Now, whether or not this is another rapprochement or another charm offensive by the authorities in Niger to try to draw Chad back into the fold of negotiations, or they're trying to keep as many friends as they can on their side as they face international pressure to restore Mohamed Bazoum to power. It remains to be seen in the next few weeks or so.
And Ahmed Idris, thanks for all your reporting and putting vital.
So now you see that's the first video, right? Now, you understand just with how the Ukraine situation happened, where Putin wanted peace, Putin even agreed, and Putin sat on the same table and they signed a memorandum, okay, of peace. Putin have his copy, Zelensky had his copy, Europe have their copy. To the extent when African leaders met Putin, Putin brought out his copy of that memorandum to the African leaders. And Putin told them, I am not the one. They are the one fighting me. I agree for peace. This is my copy. This is their signature. This is my signature. You see it. Putin showed it to the world, and the world saw it. But it was America and Europe that told Zelensky not to make peace. That's the same thing happening because they told Zelensky not to make peace because they fear that with them defeating Russia, their empire will survive, will not fail. And since they cannot see the need of defeating Russia through Ukraine, and they have not even also seen the need of using any NATO nation in Europe to fight Russia. They know there is no NATO nation in Europe that can stand out to Russia, to fight Russia, to defeat Russia. So since they have seen it, that route is not working, and they have seen the power of Africa. They have seen the power of Africa. They have seen that any nation or continent that ally with Africa, that make business with Africa on a fair share, automatically that war or that nation will stand 100% chance of surviving and becoming and rising up to become one of the strongest forces in the world. And they have seen in that any nation at this point of time is very crucial. If they are not part of Africa, that nation is doomed to fall. So there's no nation in Europe that can fight Russia. That is for facts. Now they turn to Africa. Why? That is not to say Africa have the ammunition to stand out to the worst. All right? That is not to say that. But what they are telling to Africa is that two things. The population. You can train African population. Naturally, we are born fighters. Naturally, Africans are born fighters. That is why Europe and America, they have never, ever given the power to Africans to be self-sufficient. They know naturally, we are born survivor. So if you just put the trigger to give African that self-sufficiency, they know we will tell them, even in our struggle, even in our little unity, even in our little power, we are telling them we don't need you. So that alone, if we are powerful, if we are equipped, that is what they have been afraid of. They don't want to empower or equip Africans to be self-sufficient. So with our little, right, we are still strong and standing against them. So they are looking at the population. And second, the resources. They don't have it to survive if they want to stand alone. They don't have it to survive. And if Russia and China, those forces, join with Africa, all African need is the technology and to improve its life and to train the manpower. That's it. We will become the dominant force in the world. And that is for facts. What happened during slavery when Africans were fighting for freedom? It was one of the reasons they stopped the importation of slaves from Africa to Europe and to America, because the enslaved African in Europe and America stood up with the limited resources. They stood up to France, they stood up to England, they stood up to America with the little resources. They know how powerful we are. They did not stop the slave trade because they saw it to the need that, you know what, we are done. We don't want to sell African again. It was because Africans stood up. And Africans were overpowering them and overcoming them. That's how they said we can no longer bring slaves here. And that is a typical example on the African continent today. These are the people funding the terrorists, the jihadi, the axis on the African continent, the imperialists, the Western nation. They are the one. Let's continue here. Now, you saw the first video and you have seen the narrative. All right? It don't take a rocket scientist to understand. Since the day of the coup, there have been 5 attempts from terrorist group fighting in Niger. What have ECOWAS says about it? What statement have ECOWAS made about it? But you want to come and fight for America and Europe. Let's continue to the next one. Like I said, it have already been confirmed. We are just here to confirm it to Africa or to Africans that it is Europe and America fighting Africa right at this point of time. Let's see the next video. This next video also proves the point, and you're going to see here, all right? It has been made clear. And then, all right.
Of Niger. So we cannot discuss what's going on in Niger.
Use military force if their deadline was not met, but there's been deep division within the region over how to respond. The Senate in Nigeria has said military force should only be used as a last resort if diplomacy fails. Neighbors Mali and Burkina Faso, all ruled by coup leaders who've ejected French forces from their country, have said any military action would be taken as an attack on their countries as well. Many Nigerians have been taking to the streets since July 26 coup to show their support of the military and voice opposition to any foreign intervention. On Wednesday, the coup leadership accused France of violating its airspace. This is Niger Army spokesperson Colonel Major Amadou Adraman.
These security disruptions planned by these French forces was the case in Mali and Burkina Faso, aimed to discredit the CNSP and create a rupture with the people who supported its actions, or to create a feeling of a generalized insecurity in any case.
Meanwhile, sanctions and power cuts imposed on Niger have hampered delivery of humanitarian aid to over 4 million people in need of assistance, according to the UN. African officers trained by the U.S. military have now taken part in 11 coups in West Africa since 2008, including in Burkina Faso and Mali. For more, we turn to Horace Campbell, professor of African American Studies and Political Science.
You heard that. These people in Africa that have been carrying out the coup, these are people that have been trained by America. So what does that mean? America have been training terrorists. America have been involved in terrorism. No, to be frank, they are terrorists. What is the difference between these people who are being trained by America to remove African leaders, to terrorize Africans, to put fear in them? Because the moment they don't agree to American policy, they go after them. So that means these people will be afraid. So they will succumb to America anytime America tells them something to do, because they want to stay in power to provide a better life for them and their family. So they will have no choice but to agree to America. Is that not terrorist act? That is terrorism right there. That in itself, we can say America is a terrorist. That in itself, we can say America is a terrorist because she's putting fear in other nations, in other leaders, okay? In other people that do not have nothing to do with America or American policy, that do not have nothing to do with American citizens. That in itself, you are a terrorist. So if America can train these people, what do you think? They cannot support Boko Haram. What do you think? They are not the one supporting Boko Haram and terrorist activities to create proxy war. If these people have been a cause of proxy activities, war in Africa, what do you think? They are not the ones supporting Boko Haram or terror of Al Qaeda or ISIS. If they have been the people in DRC Congo creating a proxy war and supplying ammunition to the rebels group, what is the difference between those people? The rebel group in DRC Congo, what is the difference between them and the terrorists? They are all terrorists. Because by definition, they are terrorists, because you put fear in people, you instill fear in people. Not to function according to their will, but to function according to their will. To your will. Not to do things according to their will, but to do things according to your will. Okay? So if they are supporting rebels, what do you think? They are not the ones supporting the terrorists or the Al Qaeda or all those jihadi groups or the insurgency. What do you think? If they are the one that gave ammunition to the terrorists, to the insurgencies in Libya, to go kill Gaddafi, to wage war on Libya, what do you think? They are not the one behind the terrorist activities, because they gave ammunition to the insurgency in Libya. That today, Libya is a failed state. If they did that, what do you think? When they were leaving Iraq, their ammunition, their vehicles were never given to the military, to the Iraqi military, but it was given to the ISIS. What do you think? Are they not the one behind the activities in Africa? Absolutely. If you can train these Africans that be removing African leaders, automatically you are a terrorist because you support terrorist activities. One who supports terrorist activities, one who fund terrorist activities, one who train the terrorists, train other people to go terrorize other people, you are a terrorist. So by definition, America is a terrorist. And not just by definition, but by actions of America, we can say they are terrorists.
Science at Syracuse University, activist and chairperson of the Global Pan-African Movement North American Delegation. He's also the author of Global NATO and the Catastrophic Failure in Libya. Professor Campbell, we welcome you back to Democracy Now! Can you talk about what's happening as we speak? The meeting in Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa, of the ECOWAS leaders, West African leaders, who set a deadline of this past Sunday saying if the president Bazoum was not returned, they would militarily intervene. Well, clearly they haven't. What's your response?
Now, did you listen to that again? If Bazoum is not reinstilled, they will gladly intervene militarily. What does that say to you? They might be behind the one or behind the terrorist, the recent five attempt at terrorist activities in Niger to remove the current government, or not to even how they call it, put in the current prime minister they just elected. And you listen to that, by any means, they will intervene militarily. By any means. So if they go through ECOWAS and ECOWAS is not working, they're going there by themselves. They're carrying their jihadi, they're carrying their terrorists, their axes. While they're there in Libya, they will do the same thing. They will give ammunition to these people, they go for these people to go and fight. Who knows? They have been trained, because if they train these Africans to remove African leaders, that also means that is why they are on the African continent, to be training people, other folks, to terrorize people. They are all terrorists. So you hear it. So it is confirmed. That's what they are doing. If they cannot reinstill, if Bazoum is not reinstilled, by any means necessarily will invade Libya, or Niger.
Of course, Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, threatening that they better not attack.
Well, good morning, Amy, and thank you for having me. We oppose all military intervention. We should make that very clear. We oppose the military intervention in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Guinea. But one cannot oppose the military intervention without opposing France and the United States and their militarization of the region. This recent destruction of civilian power and civilian leadership in Niger is one of the 9 sequences that has developed since the war on terror in that region. The fabrication of terror, the intervention of the United States and France in the region, and the consequences of the destruction of Libya and the financing of groups, military groups in the region by France. Now this...
Again, you hear that? That is confirmation. You heard it. The financial support, the intervention of America and France in the area, the financial support of France in the area, okay, against the Nigerian, okay? They have financial support, okay, with those terrorists, with those Al-Qaeda, with those axes. You heard it, right?
This military intervention in Niger is a consequence of the militarization of Nigerian society when the society needs social and economic reconstruction. The United States has pumped more than $1 billion into this region, into military facilities and military programs, and supporting military elements in this region. In Niger alone.
So you heard that. Sorry for keep cutting about, just emphasize on it. Okay, so you heard it. Okay, so all the proxy war, all the chaos. So that is to tell you what he's saying here, right here. The jihadi, the terrorists, the Boko Haram, the ISIS, they are being supported by Europe and America. All the militarization in the area are done by Europe and America. If these people clearly stated that they are there to train other folks, other Africans to remove government, if they can do that, what do you think? They are not the one behind Boko Haram and all the terrorist activities in Africa there. But you just hold it for yourself now, right? Let's move on. We're going to get to ECOWAS, but let's move on. For now, we'll focus on Europe and America, but we will get to the stupid ECOWAS.
Alone, the United States has spent $500 million building a military base and military and drone facilities in Agadez to support French exploitation of the mineral human resources of Niger. So we cannot discuss what's going on in Niger without discussing the call by the African people for the expulsion of France from West Africa. The foreign minister of Mali has called on the United Nations to investigate France in the region. The former prime minister of Italy has called for sanctions against France. And it is the right-wing conservative forces in the United States that is supporting France, to the point where now we see the conservative wing of the Biden administration, led by Victoria Nuland and Antony Blinken, leading the discussions on Africa. Why is it that Victoria Nuland was in Niger on Monday and Victoria Nuland is in South Africa? The Biden administration has African expert. They named Johnny Carson as their expert on Africa at the last US-Africa summit. But it's Victoria Nuland, the hawk that wants to militarize the planet Earth, who is a rabid militarist, who is now flying between Nigeria, Niger, and South Africa, carrying out US policies. The task is for the left and progressive forces in this country to call for the removal of the United States Africa Command from Africa, the closing of the US military facilities in Niger, and to support the people of Niger in removing France from Niger, just as the people of Burkina Faso and Mali has done. And we should support the call for federation between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso.
Give us the history of Niger and French colonialism there. We'll also talk about the United States.
Well, Niger is one of those states that has suffered from French military intervention and destruction in the region. The French are inordinately dependent on the exploitation and plunder of Africa. The French has military personnel in Niger. When their military personnel were thrown out of Mali and Burkina Faso, they were redeployed to Niger, and they were stoned on the way to their bases in Niger. The France has exploited the mineral and natural resources of Niger. The French uranium mines in Niger not only exploited the uranium resources of Niger, but France has also closed mines and left radioactive material that is deleterious to the health and safety of the Nigerian people. Now, everyone in West Africa is calling for the ending of the CFA franc and the domination of the economies of West Africa by France. They're calling for the removal of the 240,000 French personnel in West Africa. In the case of Niger, France is opposed to any plans for the reconstruction of the country. Let's take the major plan in this region for the reconstruction of the country. That is the replenishing of Lake Chad. You started this news broadcast this morning by talking about a fire in Hawaii. Those kinds of fires are going on all across West Africa because of global warming. Global warming has accelerated the depletion of Lake Chad. Lake Chad has lost 95% of its water resources. There's a plan by the Lake Chad Basin Authority to replenish Lake Chad. Who is against this? France. Who is against investment in reconstruction in West Africa? France. Who has been supporting, who allegedly has been supporting terror groups in West Africa? When the United States called for investigation into Boko Haram, it was revealed in the Nigerian newspapers that the French has been supporting Boko Haram in Nigeria. So the French create terrorist groups and then goes into African countries to say they are fighting terrorism in Africa. This kind of duplicity by France and fomenting terror and destruction has been challenged by the peoples of West Africa. In every country in West Africa, they're calling for the ending of French economic, financial, and military domination. So we in this country must call on our representatives and our political forces who are progressive. For example, Ocasio-Cortez, who is a progressive member of Congress. When she was a student, she went into Niger. Why are they not raising their voices against the militarism and militarization of West Africa by the United States military, and to call for investment in health, reconstruction, water supply, and the safety of the people of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali? The United States, France, is gung-ho about reversing a military coup in Niger. What about the military coup in Sudan that has been supported by the United States, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates? What about the destruction of the military in Sudan against the peoples of Sudan, calling for the restoration of democratic relations? We cannot be selective in our opposition to militarism. We must oppose militarism of all sorts in Africa, but the priority at this moment is for the removal of France and to call on the United Nations to have sanctions against France for its destruction and militarism in Africa.
And then talk about the U.S. role, the U.S. Drone base in Niger, and talk about the significance of uranium in the world that's in Niger.
Well, let's start with the United States of America. The United States of America has been involved in what they call a war on terror, which is, in the words of Jerry McKinnon, a fabrication in West Africa. The people who are called terrorists, in many cases, are people who were supported by France. In the case of the destruction of Libya, the United States and France removed Gaddafi, and now the United States and France are fighting on both sides of the war in Libya. After the destruction of Libya,
sorry, folks. So you heard that again, okay? When it comes to the militarization on the African continent, when it comes to these terrorist activities, you heard that France and the U.S. are the people behind it. And he even talked about Libya. So he said the militarization on the African continent, these terrorist activities, France and the U.S. are the people behind it.
the Tuareg left Libya and went into Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. The French supported groups that are supposed to be terror groups, and then the United States started what they call the Trans-Sahara Counter-Terror Initiative and spent $500 million on that counter-terror initiative. The United States then went into Niger to build a military base and a drone base in Agadez. Now, all of this is very murky because even the Pentagon cannot account for what is happening. The congressional representatives say they do not know what's going on in Niger. When 4 United States Marines were killed at Tongo Tongo in Niger, and if you look at the map to see where Tongo Tongo is, right at the border between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. When these 4 Marines were killed in 2017, up to now, the Pentagon cannot say what happened to these 4 Marines. The ABC documentary 321T1 Unredacted talks about the murkiness of the intelligence and the opaque operations of the Pentagon in Niger. The United States needs to remove its military forces from Africa and to support the peace, social justice forces in Africa who are fighting for reconstruction in that part of the world. So,
sorry, folks, let me just add something there. Now, he talked about a 4 Marine that was killed in our region, right? And up to now, the Pentagon have said nothing. In fact, they don't even know what really happened, what went on. Do you believe that? America of all America, the Pentagon of all Pentagon, will not know or understand what went on with those 4 Marines that was killed, and no information, factual information that have been displaced about what went on down there. What does that mean? Could have been that those 4 Marines that was killed, they were never even killed by rebel, or they were never even killed by terrorists. Could have been that those 4 Marines were actually killed by their own people because they knew something about the role of the United States and France, the role of Western power or Western military bases in our era. Could have been that those 4 Marines knew about the support, the awesome support to these terrorists. Could have been that those people, they were coming to be whistleblower and they killed them. That's why up to now the Pentagon have said nothing. How? Do you believe that? They don't know anything and they are silent? It could be. Those 4 Marines that was killed, they were killed by their own people because they were coming as whistleblower, because they knew something.
the United States itself is a force for destruction against the peoples of Africa at the moment.
All right. So you heard that. The United States herself is a force against the people of Africa. Have we not said that here before? Have we not said that? We said the United States is an enemy to Africa. Somebody just back it off. By the way, he's a professor in the United States here. We have said this time with our numbers that the United States is not a friend or an ally to Africa. Once a colonizer is a colonizer. The same way we talk about France is the same way the United States operate in Africa. In fact, Liberia is her, how to call it, her little creek that she can go and just fetch water to drink anytime she want to. Liberia. Liberia was the colony to the U.S. Liberia was the territory to the U.S. That is, the U.S. owned a colony. But she used what they call settlers' colony to create a colony. So you heard it. What he said. The U.S. is not a friend to Africa. So the same way we classify Europe or France, Great Britain, the entire Europe, that's the same way we classify America in Africa. They are colonizers. They did not colonize Africans. They didn't enslave Africans. They all did the same thing. They sold Africans for profits. What do you think? They are all in the same boat.
I want to ask you about the leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, all warning against the foreign intervention in Niger to reverse the coup. Now, Burkina Faso's interim leader, Ibrahim Traoré, who took power in a coup in September, recently spoke in Moscow during the Russia-African summit. He criticized what he called imperialist neocolonialism.
The questions my generation is asking are the following. If I can summarize, it is that we do not understand how Africa, with so much wealth on our soil, with generous nature, water, sunshine and abundance, how Africa is today the poorest continent. Africa is a hungry continent. And how come there are heads of state all over the world begging? These are the questions we are asking ourselves, and we have no answers so far. We have the opportunity to forge new relationships, and I hope that these relationships can be the best ones to give our people a better future. My generation also asks me to say that because of this poverty, they are forced to cross the ocean to try to reach Europe. They die in the ocean, but soon they will no longer have to cross because they will come to our palaces to seek their daily bread. As far as what concerns Burkina Faso today, for more than 8 years, we've been confronted with the most barbaric and the most violent form of imperialist neocolonialism. Slavery continues to impose itself on us. Our predecessors taught us one thing: a slave who cannot assume his own revolt does not deserve to be pitied. We do not feel sorry for ourselves. We do not ask anyone to feel sorry for us. The people of Burkina Faso have decided to fight against terrorism in order to relaunch their development.
So that is Burkina Faso's interim leader, Ibrahim Traoré, who took power in a coup in September wearing that red beret that's reminiscent of Thomas Sankara, the leader who was assassinated in 1987. Talk about that history, Professor Campbell.
The political consciousness of the peoples of Africa at the moment, this consciousness has been heightened by the conjuncture of the global capitalist crisis, the investments for billionaires, the climate crisis, COVID-19, and the general immiseration of the African peoples. Thomas Sankara was a military leader in Burkina Faso. And that's why, though we condemn military coup d'etat, we do not have a knee-jerk reaction against all military leaders, because within the ranks of the military in Burkina Faso are the heirs of Thomas Sankara. Thomas Sankara was a leader who organized the people of Burkina Faso to bring safety, security, sanitation, peace to that country, and it was about how to mobilize the people of West Africa against French imperialism. And through French and Ivorian machinations, the Thomas Sankara was killed. The military in Burkina Faso still has some of the sentiment and consciousness of Thomas Sankara. But what was being said by the leader of Burkina Faso is now reflected all across West Africa. In Senegal, the anti-French, anti-imperialist sentiments are very high. And the highest anti-imperialist sentiment in Africa at the moment is to be found in the Sudan, where the revolution in the Sudan has mobilized the people into resistance committees that overthrew the military. So Burkina Faso, Sudan, Mali, and now Niger are countries where the room for developing the political consciousness of the people and strengthening the anti-imperialist bloc in Africa is very strong. Last week, the EFF in South Africa had its 10th anniversary Congress. And if you listen to the speech of Malema, the anti-imperialist speech, you get a sense of the sentiment all across Africa about imperialism, about the need for African unification, harnessing the resources of Africa, and to ensure that Africa is not drawn into any new wars. what we are seeing in Nigeria is that the Nigerian government, which many in Nigeria call the present government illegal, this government in Nigeria needs an intervention in Niger and in Burkina Faso and Mali in order to get favor from the United States of America so that Tinubu can be in power. The people of Nigeria, they're against this military intervention. The Senate of Nigeria, as you said in the lead up, said they should not intervene. They said there should be dialogue. The people of Nigeria, the people of Niger are one. So what the Burkina Faso leader said in Russia at the Russia-Africa Summit is a sentiment of the peoples all across Africa about Western military intervention in Africa.
And yet, interestingly, Professor Campbell, the African officers who are involved in these 11 coups in the last 15 years in West Africa, including in Burkina Faso and Mali, have been trained in the United States.
And trained by this money that the United States is supposed to be spending on counterterror. And I think that is why we need greater investigation in what the United States is doing in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and Guinea, and to call for closing of the United States Africa Command and for there to be greater relations between the civilian societies in Africa and the people of the United States. The United States Africa Command needs to be removed from Africa because the United States Africa Command has been responsible for part of the sequences of militarism in West Africa.
And finally, if you can talk about the U.S., I would say, intensified interest in Africa right now, as it tries to compete with Russia and, even more importantly, China. If you can talk about Africa as a kind of proxy for this global competition.
Yes. First of all, the African peoples have been fighting for self-determination. The African peoples have been calling for the unification of Africa. The African peoples have been calling for the African currency so that they are not sending billions of dollars, up to $48 billion every year to Western European countries. The African countries want freedom of movement. They're creating the Africa Continental Free Trade Community. The United States, France, the European Union, all foreign powers are against Africa uniting and creating roads and railways and ports for the African peoples. The overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya was directly related to the plan by the African Union for an African currency. An African currency that prevents the outflow of resources from Africa is a threat to France, the European Union, and the United States of America. And that is why the United States is creating the boogie about China, and the United States is intensifying militarism in Africa. Next, this war in Ukraine is a terrible war against the peoples of Ukraine and that region. But that war in Ukraine is another step of the militarization of the planet, where the United States is supporting the fascist elements in Ukraine. Now, Africans have taken a position that they do not have any dog in this fight. They want peace in Ukraine. The United States is threatening Africans with the countering Russian malign influence in Africa. They've actually passed a bill in Congress to coerce Africans to support the United States and the NATO war in Ukraine, when Africans are calling for NATO to be accountable for the destruction of Libya. In South Africa in particular, where there will be the BRICS summit the next week, where Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are coming together to break the domination of the United States over the world economy. The United States is threatening the South African government. It's not by accident that Victoria Nuland went from West Africa to South Africa. They've been threatening the South African government and making allegations that South Africa is selling arms to Russia. All of these are fabrications. The United States is now leaning on Kenya to send soldiers to Haiti. The United States is calling on Kenya to sign a strategic trade investment partnership with Kenya to break up the plans for greater cooperation in Eastern Africa. So the United States is running amok in Africa based on challenging China. The African people do not need the United States to tell them to challenge China. What the people of Africa needs is to plant food to end hunger. They want jobs, they want roads, they want health care, and they want tangible resources internationally to fight climate change. This is the most important crisis globally. So we in this part of the world need to join with the African peoples supporting peace and reconstruction, supporting the replenishment of Lake Chad, and do not support France and the United States in the destruction of Africa.
Horace Campbell, I want to thank you for being with us.
Okay. So that is the first or the second video, right? So basically it's all about video. I told her to bring article. Basically it's all about video because we want to see the statement, the reaction from our side of the angle. Now, you heard from the video clear the role of America in Africa, right? In which, of course, this is something America and Europe have been saying, that the role of China, the Maido China play in Africa, that Maido is toxic to American interests. Even Macron have said it. The role of China and Russia in Africa, it is not in the interest of the imperialists. Macron himself has said it as well. And there have been numerous American scholars, so-called American scholars, who have also said the same thing, that they have spoken to China for China to back of her policy. Her policy is different from the European or American policy because the Chinese policy will give some empowerment to Africans to rise up against the imperialists, and that is what's going on. And that is what they hate. What now you saw in the video, right? Almost everywhere America have been part and parcel of the chaos in Africa. They have been part and parcel of terrorist activities in Africa. Billions of dollars, like the reporter said, America has spent militarizing the African continent. Billions. Do you think America is there to empower the African continent? Why couldn't America use that billions of dollars in technology, in education, okay, in sanitation, in roads? Let's go on. So, if China is bringing her $1 billion to improve sanitation, to improve education, to improve technology, which side should we go on? Should we go on the side of China, who is improving education, technologies, or sanitation and so forth, right? Roads. Or should we go on the side of America that uses of billions of dollars to militarize the African continent? Which side should we go on? Which side should we go on? The United States or China? Only the stupidest African will say we should go on the side of America. The stupidest. And that is what happened to Ecuador. Some of the ECOWAS leader, they are the stupidest Africans ever to live. The stupidest. Like Tinubu is one. Okay? Tinubu is one. And the chief, and they call him chief of ECOWAS whatsoever, like in Ghana, he black said. He's one. He's one of the stupidest Africans. Let's continue here. Now we have seen the role of America in Africa. They are not friends to Africa. Let's continue. Let's see the next one. Let's go a little bit into history, okay? So let's go even deeper to see what the professor is saying, okay? Let's see something here. Because I don't look, America will never understand what Africans are talking about, what Africans are going through. Because it is our demise that make them who they are. So they don't care. They want us to see us in our circumstances because they want to be at that stage they are. So they don't care to listen to us. So let's go into history to remind them our stay is our stay because of their perpetual behavior against Africans. Now, this video is just showing how France, I wanted to bring out articles, but one articles could not have, actually clarify to you what I want to discuss. So I left those articles and then I went with the video because the video, you can see it, even though it did not give, like the article that you will read and see, but at least the video will give you an understanding, all right, because of time. So I left out those articles and then I was like, okay, let me carry the video, all right? But watch this video about France. And by the way, this is how all the colonialists operate in Africa. This is how they have been operating, and this is how they are still operating. America is still operating the same in Liberia. Okay? It did not change. All these colonizers, all these enslavers, they are still the same in Africa. Nothing changed.
It was July 30th, 2023, just weeks after the military coup in Niger. The army supporters gathered at the French embassy in Niamey, hundreds of them. They set fire to the embassy's door. They also burned the French flag. Back in Paris, President Emmanuel Macron was spooked. He ordered a full evacuation. Around 600 French nationals lived in this country. All of them were pulled out. This military coup is definitely anti-democracy, but it's also anti-French. All symbols of France have been targeted, their embassy, their flag, and also their military base. But why the animosity? And why towards France and not other countries? The answer lies in Niger's history. In fact, the history of West Africa. This region was colonized by France from the late 19th century. They became independent after the Second World War. But unlike other colonizers, France never left. Their influence and presence continued to linger. Why is that? Time for a flashback. Let's begin from the 16th century. That's when France became interested in Africa. The reason was slaves. The French were the third biggest slave traders. They took around 1.3 million Africans to their colonies in the Americas. Around 200,000 people never made it. They perished at sea. As the slave trade developed, France needed ports. They got one in 1659 here in St. Louis in Senegal. For a long time, French interests were limited to coastal Africa. The interiors were untouched. But in the 19th century, that changed. There were two reasons for that. One was the domestic rivalry back home. The European powers were already competing with each other. Africa became a new theater. And reason number two was resources. Europe needed to feed its expanding industries. They zeroed in on this area. It was called the Gold Coast. There was gold, oil, and much more there. The French expansion began from Senegal. In 1854, General Louis Faidherbe was appointed governor. He quickly got down to business. Under his rule, French control was extended to Gambia. But his ambitions were bigger. He wanted to conquer the Niger Delta and Mali. His government was not so keen, though. They thought it would be too expensive, so the expansion project was paused. It would resume in the 1880s. This was the beginning of the scramble for Africa. No shadow wars anymore. European armies were marching across the continent. They were picking off countries one by one. This inevitably led to fighting between European powers, so the German chancellor proposed a plan. This man, Otto von Bismarck, he brought all the European countries together in Berlin. In 1885, these countries signed the Berlin Act. It formalized the scramble for Africa, and the logic was quite simple. Instead of fighting each other, let's carve up the continent. Each country gets its own colony. And no, the Africans were not consulted. In the 1880s, almost 80% of the continent was ruled by the locals, kings, sultans, and tribal chiefs. By 1900, it was flipped. Around 90% of Africa was colonized by Europe, and Niger was part of this. In 1899, two French officers were put on the job. Captain Paul Vollet would lead this mission, and his second in command was Julien Chanoine. Both men had one thing in common: their bloodlust. They set off from Dakar in Senegal. Their job was this: explore Chad and Niger, gather local intelligence, reach the Sudan, and return. Basically, create this ribbon of French territory, from Senegal in the west to the Sudan in the east. Captain Vollet had a reputation. He led the French conquest of Burkina Faso in 1896. He was ambitious and brutal. His expedition to the Sudan is called many things: the Killer Trail, the African Apocalypse, the Heart of Darkness. Gives you an idea of what went down. It was one of the most violent and bloody episodes in colonial history, not just in Africa, but the whole world. Vollet's mission was not well funded, so at the first village he reached, he demanded porters. He needed people to carry things. When the locals denied, he razed the entire village. Around 100 people wiped out. It was a sign of things to come. Vollet often refused to feed his camp followers. When they complained, he killed them. Men, women, and children were bayoneted to death. Not shot, bayoneted, because Vollet wanted to save bullets. Such massacres followed him everywhere. It was so bad that word reached the French government in Paris. Vollet's own soldiers were horrified by the violence. Some of them deserted. When Paris got to know, they ordered Vollet and Chanoine to be arrested. They deputed a French officer from Mali. He followed the expedition's trail to catch them. What he saw was blood-curdling. At one village, around 1,000 corpses had been left in the open. Bodies of young girls were hanging from trees. People were terrified by the French flag. It was a sign of impending death. The bid to arrest Vollet and Chanoine did not work. In the end, both were killed by their own soldiers, but the mission continued. French troops marched through the Sahara and secured the region. Their African project was complete. It looked like this: a federation of 8 territories: Mauritania, Senegal, Mali, Guinea, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Benin, and Niger. The capital was Dakar. This whole region was called French West Africa. Fun fact: it was 8 times bigger than European France. So how did they control it? The same way they captured it, using brute force. France did face rebellions in the first decades after the conquest, like the Tuareg rebellion of 1916. The Tuaregs are an ethnic group living in the Saharas. In Niger, they live in the country's north. When the Tuaregs rebelled, France crushed them. Summary executions were the norm. It was through these crackdowns that Paris held on to its colonies. Many of them fought wars for France. Around 2.5 million Africans were part of the First World War, another 1 million in the Second World War. These people were not French citizens, they were French subjects. And that equation changed only after the Second World War in 1946. Niger, along with other colonies, became overseas territories. They got seats in parliament, and with elections came political parties. The most important one was the PPN, the Progressive Party of Niger. Two men came to dominate this party, the radical Jibo Bakari and the moderate Hamani Diori. They were cousins, also rivals. An important moment came in 1958. France had adopted a new constitution. Its colonies now had to vote on it, sort of like a referendum. If Niger passed it, the country would remain in the French community. The cousin politicians chose different sides. The radical Bakari called for a boycott. But Diori said, let's vote yes. He did not want independence yet. He wanted more autonomy within France, and he prevailed in 1958. Around 72% of Niger's citizens voted to approve the constitution. He also became the new president. But the tide was slowly shifting.
All right, sorry, folks. So this is Niger, right? So now you see it. What's going on? What went on then and what is going on now? All right. Now, there was one group, okay, they were relative, right? The same way in Africa right now, ECOWAS is talking about going against her brothers and sisters, going to kill another Africans, right? It was the same way, according to this history. These were cousins, but rival, okay, not ally, right? Now, one of them agreed to be totally free, liberated, just how we have the Casablanca and the Moreover group, right? So, and then one of them agreed, how they call it, disagree with the other friends and said, I'm going with the colonizer. We don't want to be independent. Let's be with the colonizer. While the other one say, no, let's be independent. This is Niger, right? Now, in this current time, it's the same thing happening with the so-called ECOWAS again. Why some African nation, in fact, okay, let me come back to the ECOWAS nation first. Why some ECOWAS nations, specifically in West Africa, are saying, we don't want war. We do not support the invasion of Niger because, first of all, if you invade Niger, absolutely, it's not just going to affect the Nigerian, it's going to affect the entire Africa. Don't just think it is the people that border Niger will suffer or the Nigerian will suffer. That war will come down to Nigeria. It will affect Ghanaian, it will affect Liberia, it will affect Africa, it will affect Togolese, it will affect the entire African continent. The entire Africa. What is happening in Europe? The war in Ukraine. Is it only the Ukrainian affecting? No, it's affecting the entire Europe. Because life is not functioning as it's supposed to go on. Okay? People are afraid because, hey, bullet can fly anytime at any area. Long-range missile can fly at any time at any area. Okay? Now, one group of army, whether Russian, can go anytime at any area, in any land, and or affect anybody there. Life is not going, life is not stable or going as it's supposed to be, as it has been. Things has changed. Things has become difficult. Now, with Africa, we are already poor. In fact, look, let me say this. When they say Niger is the second poorest, look, there's nothing like second or first. Niger is poor. So if you say Niger is the second poorest, that is an understatement. Europe and America, the Western world, made Africa poor. They made Niger poor. But they will come here and say they give aid to Niger. How can Niger be the one to supply you? How can Niger be the one to boom your economy? And then you say Niger is poor. When you, America, you, Europe, are the people that make Niger poor. And you got a gust to come and say Niger is the second. So you are the one to classify nation. They are the first pool. They are the second pool. When you, America, you are on the verge of becoming a third world country. Look at your country. Look at your country. All 50 states. In fact, America have the highest homeless than the entire nation in Africa combined. America have the highest homelessness than Africa. You can combine, the entire nation in Africa, the whole African continent. They will not reach up to homelessness in America. So what is that third world? Is America not a third world? Why should we always allow the West to come and define us? The entire African, the whole continent of Africa, when you talk about homelessness, that don't even count 1/5 of what happened in America in terms of homelessness. America have the highest homelessness. If you want to talk about the entire African continent, in America, homelessness in America is too much. If you want to talk about drug addiction, the entire Africa, drugs addiction here in America here is too much. In all 50 states. So, when they are talking about Niger or any African nation or any African state, let them look at the underlying factors. And that is why, in fact, from this video, I call it the tragic of Africa. The tragic of Niger today, it did not start today. It started 400, 500, 600 years ago. The tragic of Niger, it did not start today. It started some 700 years ago with the white man, with Europe and America. The tragic of contemporary Africa today, it did not start with the contemporary Africa or Africans. It started with Europe and America some 700 or 800 years ago. The tragic of Africa. The tragic of Niger or the tragic of Mali, it did not start in contemporary Africa. It started some 200-300 years ago. The tragic of Guinea, it did not start today with contemporary Guinea. It started some 200-400 years ago. When you give that name, Guinea, when you give that name, Liberia, when you give that name, Senegal, when you give that name, Niger, Mali, Nigeria, Togo, Guinea-Bissau, when you give that name, that's where the tragic of Africa started from.
Dissent was growing in parts of Niger, especially the northern deserts. So in 1960, France had to give in. They agreed to grant independence to Niger. Diori was elected president again. He banned all other parties, cracked down on rivals, and ruled like an autocrat. Now, normally the story would end here. But in West Africa, it does not. France began acting like a toxic ex, hanging around too much or meddling for no reason. This policy has a name too, France-Afrique, a sphere of French influence in West Africa. It was the brainchild of this man, former French President Charles de Gaulle. He asked his advisors to build up France-Afrique in 1962. And how did they do that? By building personal networks. France propped up leaders, often dictators in West Africa. They gave them military support, a little aid, and a whole lot of French glamour. What did they get in return? Resources and influence. More than 1,000 French companies operate in West Africa. They have the third biggest investments. First is America, second is Britain. They also have soldiers there. France has deployed 3,000 troops in Africa. Around half of them are in Niger. Their job is to fight terror groups, but you can see why this is problematic. Imagine Britain stationing soldiers in India. Terrorism or not, it's an affront. From the 1980s, French presidents have promised to dilute Françafrique. Macron has done so too, but their actions suggest the opposite. I have some trivia for you. 14 countries in Africa use the same currency. It's called the CFA franc. It was created back in 1945, before African independence. But even today, 14 countries use it. And I'll tell you how it works. West African countries deposit 50% of their reserves at the French treasury. In return, they can use the CFA franc. Its value is pegged to the euro. France says the currency brings stability to West Africa, but it also brings trauma, the trauma of a colonial past. The CFA franc is often called monetary servitude. It is one of the many reminders of French colonialism. Now you know why people in Niger dislike France. They plundered and razed entire villages, raped and mutilated women and children, imposed a colonial currency on them, and most importantly, refused to leave. France is a strange case. Most countries are blamed for their colonial policies, but France is also blamed for its post-colonial policies. Of course, that does not justify the coup, but it does explain why a lot of people support it. President Macron has always had a taste for foreign policy. He wants to leave a mark on the world. Maybe this is it. He could be the president who destroyed Françafrique. Mali has moved away from French influence, so has Burkina Faso and now Niger. He may not have intended it, but that could be his legacy.
So that's a tragic of Africa. So did you see have history from this short video? That's why I said, like I said, that's why I thought it was not to even bring article, okay? Because I was going to read maybe 2, 3, 4, or 5 articles before you could really understand. But you see in this short video how it gave a historical perspective down the line all the way to current event and to explain the anger, the frustration of the people in this current generation. For America, a hypocrite America, to sit down and say and not even listening to the people. And they say Bazou was a Democrat. Who defend democracy? Are you the one to defend democracy for the Nigerian? Are you the one, you America, are you the one to defend democracy for we Africans? Are you the one to defend democracy for the people in Niger? Are you the one to determine democracy for them? Who is to determine democracy for them, if not by them and for them, and by themselves? Who are the one who gave me the authority to defend democracy or to choose what democracy look like? Who gave me the authority? The people say they do not want a supported government of the United States, of Europe. They don't want it because such government is loyal to Europe and America and not to the Nigerian, not to the African. And they say they don't want him. Who gave me the authority to say he should stay there? Who gave you that authority? Who gave you the authority? So, are you telling us democracy is well? The interest of America and Europe, the colonizer, the enslaver, the killer, the devil, will prevail in our country. But the people will in our country do not prevail. That is their definition of democracy. The will of America prevail. The will of America foreign policy prevail in our country. But the people will do not prevail. The form of government in our country do not affect the livelihood of the people. That is democracy to Europe and America. They don't care. They don't care whether that government is for the people. They don't care whether that government affects the life of the people. They don't care. But as long as that government will prevail in America, support the will of America, then that is democracy. We should accept that as a democracy. And then in turn, America and Europe call us shithole. We should accept that as democracy. And then in turn, America and Europe call it insignificant. We should accept that as democracy. And then in turn, America and Europe call us a continent, a nation. We should accept that that as democracy. But when we say, hold a minute, we don't want American aid, we want to be by ourselves, then he said that is not democracy. That is violation of democracy. That is against human rule, or that is against how they call it, humanity. But it is not against humanity when we are being subjugated, when we are being seen as subject. That is against humanity. When America is taking advantage of African people and exploiting African people and creating jihadi terrorist access and supporting it, creating proxy war, okay, training African leaders to go remove African democratic elected government, that is democracy. We should accept that. That is rule of law. We should accept that. That we have come to realize and understand we don't want it. And we will not accept. Let's go to the next part. Let's go to the next part. Now, like I said, the video you watch, whether America, whether France, whether all of them, they play the same role, the same attitude, the same behavior. They play it. None is different. America is not different from France. America is not different from Great Britain. America is not different. In fact, America is the master of all of them. America. Let's see the other video, okay, of what America, the role America play. It's not about freedom. It's not the role America play. Let's see this.
The CIA assassinated your first popular leader, Mr. Lumumba, and then installed another dictatorship for the next 30 years. And then Glencore and others now suck out your cobalt without giving you.
So this is democracy to America, okay? America went and assassinated Patrick Lumumba of DRC, okay? A democratic elected government by the people. It wasn't a democracy for America, okay? It wasn't a rule of law for America, all right? Because this man, this leader, okay, did not support the ideology or the surface agenda or American policy in DRC Congo. Because he said DRC, it is time for DRC to manage and exploit her own resources for the benefit of our people and not any foreign interference like America. So that was against humanity for African people to stand on their own, to stand firm, to be free from America and from any foreign interference. That was against to America. That was against human rights. To America, that was against democracy. For Africans to stand on their own, for Africans to be self-sufficient, that was against democracy to America. For Africans to be self-reliant, that was against democracy to America. That was against rule of law to America. That was against humanity to America. They want to kill him. Now we understand who you are. Now we understand the kind of democracy you want for African people.
Tax income. We don't reflect on that. We say, what's wrong with you? Why don't you govern properly? It's interesting. We heard from the minister of DRC, what's wrong with your country? Well, we don't even start by saying the King of Belgium created a slave colony for 30 years. The government of Belgium ran the slave colony for another 40 years. The CIA assassinated your first popular leader, Mr. Lumumba, and then installed another dictatorship for the next 30 years. And then Glencore and others now suck out your cobalt without giving you tax income. We don't reflect on that. We say, what's wrong with you? Why don't you govern properly? And so we have a system, but we need a different system. We cannot turn this over to the private sector. We already did. About 100.
Sorry, folks, we're going to keep moving, okay? We're going to keep moving. But again, you see it, right? This is the kind of democracy, the one for Africans people. Now, folks, like I said, the tragic of Africa, okay? It did not start today, all right? It started some years back, some 2, 3. I mean, you remove a democratic elected government and you put a puppet government in power and you call it democracy. You put a puppet government in power who led the country for 30 years with nothing and you call that democracy. The democracy that did not affect the livelihood of the people, you call it democracy. But put money in the banks of America, the bank of Wachovia or West Fargo, the bank of Barclays, okay? You put money in there, the Swiss bank. You put money in your pocket and you call that democracy. Look at the people's life in DRC Congo, the richest nation on planet Earth. Look at their life. And you call that democracy. And you call that human right. And you call that rule of law. When you exploit the people, you kill the people leader. And you call that true human law. You call that true democracy. You put in your own puppet lawyer government and you call that democracy. And then you want for this generation to listen to you. And then when we ask you, what is democracy? What is your definition of democracy? And then you can't tell us. And then these so-called stupid African leaders, some of them especially, those that support ECOWAS, these are the same people, America, Europe, that will come and say, African, you are stupid. You don't know how to lead. Like the guy said in the video, what's wrong with your country? What's wrong with your continent? Y'all can't move. You people depend on Europe. You people depend on America for handout, for aid. Why you guys can refuse America aid? But you people are the cause. When certain people in America and Europe don't understand the struggle of Africans, why they struggle, they don't understand. They are the ones to come up to say Africans live on American aid. But not knowing without Africa, there will be no America in this time. And you can see it. Not knowing without Africa, there will be no Europe. And you can see it. Let's continue here. Africa will not be the next Ukraine to die, to fight for any NATO nation. No, I want to make a statement, but I will not go ahead of time until we get to the stupid ECOWAS. Matter of fact, we're already there. Let's see the next one. Now, we are actually getting to ECOWAS now, to what we are here to discuss after we have laid down the premise or the premises, after we have given some historical perspective or background as to why Africans are behaving like this, right? So now, even when we going against, okay, let me not say against, even when we are educating ECOWAS, when we are putting ECOWAS into her place, all right, we want to make them understand that we have evidence and we are saying what we are saying because of these things. We are saying what we are saying because of these things. Because tomorrow, it is the same Western leader that will come out, those African leaders from ECOWAS that are supporting the invasion of Niger, they are the same African leader tomorrow. America will be pointing finger at you guys are useless. You guys don't know how to lead. You guys are stupid. These African leaders, they will be the one. And at that time, they might either be in a grave or dead. But the next generation of African leader, they are the one. The next generation of American or European leader will be insulting. Because you people there right now, you the equal leader there right now are making a worst mistake. And tomorrow, the generation, the next generation that these white folks, that these NATO nations are producing, they will be the one that will be insulting the next generation of African leaders to come after you people. But after y'all will be dead and rotting in your grave. Like y'all said, 2063 will be the year of gone silent on the African continent or on Africa wide. But you want to start a war. And then you say by 2063, this will be Africa at this level. Now I knew by 2063, because you are making some dumb and stupid decision, Africa will be at the bottom. Maybe I can tell you, with equal stupidity, by 2063, we will have Joe Biden great-grandchildren as president in Africa. We will have Joe Biden grandchildren in Africa as president, as prime minister in Africa by 2063. Because of stupid Africa, I had to call it equal leader. By 2063, we're going to find Joe Biden, racist Joe Biden, son, grandson, not son, but grandson in Africa as president or as prime minister. If you don't believe it, this is a topic we'll come to get in now. By 2063, with the decision of this so-called stupid African equal leader, by 2063, Joe Biden's grandson might be president or prime minister in Africa. You will not have no African leaders, no black men in Africa as leader. You will not have it. With the decision, with the kind of decision ECWA is taking, if we are not smart to fight back by 2063, you will not find a black man, an African in power. In Africa. All right. So now we are getting into what we are here for. Okay. The video you are about to watch. All right. This is, I would say, the second ECWA meeting, not in Nigeria now, but this time in Ghana. The second ECWA meeting in Ghana, which they have confirmed to invade Niger. And again, what there's idiots, you see him sitting down there, there's idiots, you see him sitting down there. What he said, it was actually America that told him to say it. Don't believe me. I will show you the version of America. These ECWA leaders are not speaking by their own will. These leaders are not speaking by their own will or by their own God-given sense and thoughts. No. They are speaking because they are puppets, because they are loyal to America and Europe. So Washington, D.C. is actually telling them what to do. So Washington, D.C. is about to get in war with Africa.
Our heads of state and government are satisfied with the report that has been presented, our troops across the region are ready, and they are ready to call, respond to the call of duty of the region. We are not against the Republic of Niger. We have said, just as the chief of the committee, the chair of the Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff has just said, that all the options are on the table. And as we speak, we are still readying mediation mission into the country. So we've not shut any door. We've not shut any door at all.
Sorry, folks. So first of all, he said they have not shut any door on Niger. That's a blatant lie. He's a fool. How about the sanction you put on Niger? You sanctioned the nation already, and you say you have not shut any door. You see, there's fool, there's idiots. You already sanctioned the nation to the extent that citizens are already feeling the weight. Not only Nigerian, but even Nigerian who also trade with Niger. They are already feeling the weight. Folks, those of you that watched the channel last week, Sunday, did you not see a truck upon truck were on the road? They couldn't enter Nigeria and they couldn't enter Niger. They were black. They couldn't carry their goods. They couldn't carry their businesses from both nations across the border. And they got stuck. Did you not see it? You have a section of the nation, and you say you have done nothing. You see, there's idiots, there's liars, there's betrayal, there's puppet, there's Negro, there's slave.
Sanctions are also on the table, and if they respond favorably, to the request by the authority of heads of state for dialogue, we are ready to accept. All we are saying is that we are not going to engage in endless dialogue. It must be fruitful, and its objective must be the restoration of constitutional order in the shortest possible time possible. In the shortest possible time. We are also calling for the release of the legitimate president of the Republic of Niger, His Excellency Mohamed Bazoum, and his family, and members of his government who are being held hostage, by the regime in Niger. This is our message, to them, that our doors are open, but we are not going to engage in endless dialogue. That is why we say all options are on.
Now, they are not going to engage on endless dialogue. What is that dialogue that he needs? To put back a puppet government that the people do not want? To reinstill a puppet government that the people do not want? To put in a government that is needed by Europe and America in order for Europe and America to carry on their PEP? Oh, because in Nigeria, they have already collected billions of dollars from Europe and America in order to put their PEP that will go through Europe. What would you rather prefer? For African to die or for African to live? So you prefer for African to die over America, for African to die over Europe. You prefer it. So what kind of constitutional order are you talking about? So are you telling me the Constitution of Niger, it says Europe and America should exploit the resources of Niger while the people live in abject poverty? Oh, so you are telling me that's the kind of constitution you people provide or support on the African continent? So the constitutional order you're talking about, it is not about the people, but it is rather the interests of Europe and America. That's the kind of constitutional order you are talking about in Niger. that you want for the people to instill or to reinstill or to continue with? A constitutional order. What is that constitutional order? Since when have you spoken about constitutional order? When America have trained Africans to remove African government. Since when did you speak about it? When America is the father of training Africans, of training rebels. America is the father of training rebels to go remove African government. You, Aqua, you have never spoken about it. Since when did you speak about constitutional order? When America have been the one training rebels to go remove African government, and you've been there. Since when did you go to say we need to reinstill that president back because we need constitutional order in our country? When they went against Toba of Liberia, did you speak about it to create constitutional order? You sat down there, America gave you money, America bribed you and gave you money, and you did not go, and you sat and watched African, your own brothers and sisters, die with the support of American army, ammunition, proliferating on that continent, in Africa, in Liberia. So that's the same thing you want for American arm to go get Nigerian. And now the Nigerian, because our war will continue. Because all African nations are saying, there's a salvation, there's a freedom. They will die. So the war will enter in Africa. And by the way, this is a warning to you people. You people are acting that ECWA is acting that they want to put fear in Africans. But this is a warning to ECWA. If you dare try it, and listen to Europe and America and invade Niger, if you dare try it, no African leader will travel. It's a warning. If you dare try it, no African leader will travel. Your children will stay in our country. Your wife, your relative, they will not travel. They will stay because the moment you can invade Niger, your children, in fact, your house will be locked down. ECWA, all the African leaders are supporting ECWA. If you invade Niger, the moment you invade Niger, just make sure your family are at war at that point of time. Your family will be at war at that point of time. You will not live in peace. Your family will not travel to come to Europe and America. They will stay in Africa and we always die. We always starve. We will die and starve. Your family will not travel. Your family will be part of that struggle. No sense. Who you want to go kill? Who you want to go starve? Africans? Your own African, your own brother? Your own African that America enslaved, millions of them die on the sea. Your own Africans that Leopold kill and rape and loot and kill them, caught them. Your own Africans that America treated during the transatlantic slavery. Your own Africans that Europe treated during the transatlantic slavery. And then when they sat down and spent 6 months and discussed how they're going to colonize and dehumanize Africa and the African continent. That's the people you want to go kill your own African for. That's the people you want to go die for, you slave. Stupidity in your brain. You crazy? Are you mad? Are you mad? Sorry, folks. Let me bring it back. It left. Let me bring it back. Let me see if I can get it back. And by the way, What he's saying down there, it was Europe and America that told him, and we're going to bring the video for that. He's not speaking by himself. He's speaking on an order of America. Okay, they don't want to play for some reason.
On the table, if they want to take the peaceful pathway to very early restoration of constitutional order in the country, then we can stand down the military option, because it is not our preferred option. But we are being obliged to do it because of the intransigence and the obstacles, intransigence of the regime and the obstacles they've been putting in the way of a negotiated settlement to the restoration of constitutional order. This is our message, and I don't think you are going to ask me a question about when we are deploying. I cannot even answer that. That is left to the chair of the Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff and the colleagues who have that. It is an operational tool, okay, that we don't disclose it. So we hope you are not going to ask that question. All I can tell you is that we are ready, equipment-wise, the political will of the countries involved, all of them around this table, and the resources required, our own resources. And I would want finally to tell you that ECOWAS is doing this in defense of its principles. Those who are misinforming the public.
Now, do you see the hypocrisy of ECOWAS? This is to prove to we Africans, ECOWAS has never been working our interests but America. He said they have the equipment, they have the military force, and ECOWAS is working in her capacity. If you have the military, if you have the equipment, and if you are working in your capacity, if you are working with your own resources, why this time? That's the question we asking ECOWAS. Why this time? Why have ECOWAS in your own capacity? So you have all these resources. Why in your own capacity? You sat down there and watch Congolese die every day. Why in your incapacity, if you have this equipment, all this military, why you sat down there all these years long in Nigeria, in your own backyard? Boko Haram has threatened you so many times, and Boko Haram said you cannot do anything. You don't have the manpower. You don't have the equipment. You can't do anything. And Boko Haram have terrorized the entire Nigeria, the entire northern Nigeria. Boko Haram have terrorized it. Boko Haram have kidnapped Africans. Boko Haram have kidnapped Nigerians many times. And in fact, they have these Nigerian women, girls, teenagers, they impregnated them. They raped them. You have done nothing. You have the manpower. What have you been doing, ECOWAS? You have the resources. What have you been doing? So you don't like African. You don't love African. You don't serve African. You wish for African to die and suffer. Do you see the kind of witchcraft activities? Do you see the kind of demonic activities you guys do? You have the equipment. But what have you done with the people in Nigeria where Boko Haram threatening them 24/7? What have you done? What have you done in Mali? In Mali, jihadi have threatened Africans. Terrorist activities. You have the manpower, the equipment, the resources. What have you done? What have you done in Chad, in Sudan? Let's go on. What have you done? You have the resources. What have you done with African dictator who has spent 40, 50 years in power on the African continent? Is that not against human right? Is that not against rule of law? America should come and tell you what rule of law is before you act. You don't have equipment, Equa. You don't have manpower. If you have it, but now you could have defeated Boko Haram. If you have it, but now you could have defeated all the terrorist activities in Africa. But you don't have manpower. How dare you? You don't have manpower. That is a fear tactic. You are working on the agenda of Europe and America. And the agenda you work on will never be prevailed in Africa. You idiot.
That ECOWAS is being teleguided or being directed by this power or that power, they are missing the point completely. And that all our interventions in the past, no external power urged us to do it. We did it ourselves, and this is no different. So
in the past, you did nothing. In Liberia, what did you do? So you watched over 300,000 people in Liberia got killed. And you said in the past, we work in our power. You work in your power and so you want to see African die. And that's why you call your power. You watch Liberian die. With the support of America, Liberians die. With the support of American weapons, Liberians die. Over 300,000 people die in Liberia. You watch Liberia got destroyed. And then you say in the past, so you were happy to see African die. And another African being destroyed with the support of American ammunition. And then you say in the past, you fail in the past. You fail. Because we kill one another, we destroy the country, and then you say in the past we succeed. You never succeeded in Liberia. You never succeeded in Sierra Leone. Tell me which one of the African nations that have ever succeeded in peacekeeping. When America tell you to go, that's the time you go. After the nation have been destroyed, after the people have died in numbers, then America tell you to go in and you go in and then you say you succeeded. That is what they did in Sierra Leone. That is what they did in Liberia. You guys failed.
we are doing it for ourselves, by ourselves, and for posterity. In the ECOWAS subregion, we want to get back to constitutional normalcy. And
now, you see this slave, this Ghanaian slave, this African slave. We want to get back to constitutional normalcy. What is that constitutional normalcy? What is that constitutional right? What is that constitutional privilege? What is that constitutional mandate that is given to the people of Niger and to the people of Africa? What is that constitutional right that you want to get back to? In abject poverty, so that France, Europe, America, they can continue to loot our resources? Is that a constitutional normalcy? So that your family can have the opportunity to travel to Europe and America and go to better school and live the rest of good life, and then the rest of the African people suffer and perish and die in abject poverty? Is that a constitutional normalcy? You idiots! Are you stupid? Are you mad? Which generation are you talking to? Which generation are you speaking to? Which generation are you speaking about constitutional normalcy? Are you not seeing Africa? No safe drinking water is a constitutional normalcy. When the people's resources are being looted, no food is a constitutional normalcy. When the people are dying from starvation, no education, is that constitutional number say? No sanitation, is that constitutional number say? When they are the richest in the world, that's supposed to be giving aid to America or to Europe, is that constitutional number say, you idiots? Stupidity in your brain? Which generation are you talking about? Not this generation. Let me take this out, folks. Let me tell you where he's speaking from. Who told him to speak as he's doing? It is America that told him. Like I said, we have proof, we have evidence. Everything ECWA is doing is Washington, D.C. So if you see there's idiots, there's Negro, there's slave, there's Mali, there's slave. If you see he's sitting here speaking, he's speaking because he's speaking from an order from Washington, D.C. There's slave, there's Mali, there's slave. Let me put a video on and tell you where he got his message from. Okay? They told him what to say. He's speaking because his master, Washington, D.C., his master told him to do it. He's not acting. Like he said, they have the resources. They are acting on the policy of ECWA. No, they are acting based on what Washington, D.C. told them. Don't believe me. Watch this and see. So what do you see here? ECWA military chief meet in Ghana. All right. So watch it and see. Watch it and see. Then you will know that, yeah, Frank.
Thank you for having me.
To other stories now, the new U.S. ambassador to Niger, Kathleen Fitzgibbon, will arrive in Niamey this week following July 26th military takeover. This was confirmed by the U.S. State Department's deputy spokesperson, Vedant Patel, in a signal of Washington's continued engagement with the situation.
So as you can see on the screen, it says State Department, new U.S. ambassador will arrive in the country, but they just say country, right? So that's Niger. So watch and see. So let's see what he's saying there, okay? So that idiots, that new African slave, that modern day slave, sitting in Ghana speaking. He said he's a chief of what army for ECWA. He was directed by Washington, D.C. They are not acting on their own.
Mr. Patel, however, said that there are no plans for her to present her credentials to the coup leaders.
To see that Ambassador Fitzgibbons was confirmed in late July after what was a year-long confirmation process. And we do look forward to Ambassador Fitzgibbons' arrival in Niamey. She is going there to lead the mission during a critical time and to support the American community and to coordinate on the U.S. government's efforts. It is a signal of the United States' continued engagement in this situation. It is not a signal of any change in U.S. policy as it relates to the circumstances in Niger. We have been quite clear of what we want to see happen. We want to see President Bazoum and his family released. We want to see the constitutional order in Niger respected. That was the case this whole time, and that will be the case whenever Ambassador Fitzgibbons gets to Niamey as well.
Sorry, folks, ladder up. So now, from the previous video that we watched, where you saw that slave in Ghana, that slave, okay? You saw him speaking with confidence that they want to restore constitutional order. Now, this guy that just spoke, okay? What did he say? Their policy have not changed about Africa or Niger. The policy is the same. And they want to make sure to reinstill Bazoum, and they want to make sure to go by the constitutional order. So did you see the line right there? So ECOWAS is not acting on her own. ECOWAS is acting based on what America is telling her to do. ECOWAS is not an organization for Africans. It is an organization for European, for America, order or policy. So you heard what he said. It's not going to change. That they will go, if they will go to war, they will go to war. And here, America will not change her policy about Africa, about Niger. They will keep that oppressive policy. They are not going to negotiate with their slave. A slave master cannot negotiate with the slave. That's what I mean. They will not change it. They will not change it because China is working with Africa on a mutual benefit. They will not change it because Russia is working with Africa on a mutual benefit. They will not change it. They will not change it because they are saying they are slave master. The slave master cannot work with the slave on a mutual business. It will not change. It will be the same. That is what I mean. You see it? You see it. If it will cause them to fight, they will fight, but it will not change it. A slave master cannot give freedom to his or her slave, because freedom to the slave, it means problem to the slave master. It means hardship to the slave master. That means the slave master will not have to live and do everything for herself. And if she don't have the means or the resources, she will end up becoming the third world country. She might end up becoming the slave. And the slave becomes the slave master. So for that reason, America's policy towards Africa will not change. America is not there like she said or he said. America is not there to dialogue with Africa. That policy will not change. America's policy has never been about dialogue with Africa. It has been about removing African leaders if you are not in line of the policies of America. He's telling us that policy will not change. So you see, he said it's about restoring constitutional order. And I see slave for ECOWAS came and said the same thing. It's about restoring constitutional order. What kind of constitution? A constitutional order based on a path to the continuation of slave? Path to the continuation of slave? Is that a kind of constitutional order? Based on oppression? Based on exploitation? Folks, you see what happening down there. ECOWAS is not acting on her own. So ECOWAS is ready to go to war Because that's what our speaker said. Nothing will change and nothing going to change. Nothing will change and nothing going to change. Let's look at the next one. Maybe you don't believe me. Let's look at the next one. Maybe you don't believe me, but see here. So what is happening in Africa right now? Okay, just how you see Europe fighting Russia in Ukraine. That is what exactly they want to do to fight Russia or China in Africa using African. The same way they use the Ukrainian to fight Russia, while the Ukrainians have died and destroyed Ukraine, while American soldiers are sitting, right, relaxing. While other European soldiers are sitting, relaxing. That's the same thing they want to do to Africa, where Africa will go and fight their own self to kill one another. Okay? Then why they sit there and relax? Watch this and see. Maybe you don't believe me, but watch this. Maybe you don't believe me. Watch something here.
The other European countries have.
Now, with this video, it's very, very long. And I just want you to get something of what we are discussing. So I'm not going to play the whole thing, okay? That's why I took it all the way to the end. So just watch and see what we're talking about here. So the whole thing, when they say America is not going to change our policy, what they're trying to do here is to just start the war. It's all about just starting the war. That's what they want right now, to just start the war. And by the way, do you know why Aqua, these stupid leaders are pushing these things? Because these leader accounts are in Europe and America, so they have already been threatening. If you don't carry on our mandate, your account will be frozen. Because they don't bank in Africa, and it is good for these African leaders. That is why they don't want to create a one African development bank in Africa. But they want to take all the looting money, the money America will give to them as aid to go exploit Africa. They take that same money and bring it and put it into the American economy, into American banks, European bank, or how they call it, banks, or the switch. And then if they don't carry on the order or you in America, they be threatening that your money is in America, we'll frost it. Your money is in England, it will be frozen. Your money is in a Swiss bank, it will be frozen. That is why you see these Negroes, these slaves, fighting so hard to go kill Africans, just so that their money in Europe and America will not be frozen.
I've always said that France wouldn't be a superpower if it didn't have all these colonies and former colonies, to exploit.
Wow.
Because,
they're not going to have nuclear power.
They won't have nuclear power.
Or nuclear energy.
They won't have, you know that all the countries that France, controls in Africa, they give the foreign currency reserve to the Bank of France. In return, Bank of France, make sure that they have a currency that they can stable. But it's a currency that is not in favor of these Africans, because it's a currency that is attached to the euro. So it makes the goods from this country very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they want to buy, goods from outside of the country, it's also expensive. So these countries really want an independence, and France didn't understand that they should have done like the British, maybe. Yeah.
British are more subtle.
More subtle. Do business and not come as,
Well, I just read today, however, that the British have the military in Kenya still, and in their old colonies. I asked you that question yesterday. The French appear to be more heavy-handed, but I really wonder. But we don't have answers about that.
It's the same thing.
We don't have answers about that.
But okay. So those bases have to leave. They cannot stay.
Well, but the United States has AFRICOM also. military bases.
And
okay.
if they have to stay, then they have to do that, you know, in good faith with
Okay,
these leaders.
let me ask you, because I think we're almost out of time. So is this going to be another proxy war between the United States and Russia?
It could be another proxy war, and then it was likely to be, because I don't see the U.S.
I don't see the U.S. giving up.
No, I don't see the U.S. giving up. It's important also for the U.S. I mean, the U.S. it's for their security. You know, they want to have control on this region. You know, not to be subject to any blackmail from terrorist groups. You know,
well, that's what they say.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, so I don't know how it will go, and then.
Okay, so you heard that, right? At the end of the video, it summarized everything. I just played the end part, right? But you heard it. So could this be another proxy war, just like Ukraine and Russia, that America and Europe use, right? Could this be another proxy war between Europe or between USA and Russia? And he said, yes, it could be. And which, of course, it is yes. So they themselves, the lady, they understand that what is going on in Niger is not about restoring peace. It's not about restoring constitutional order. It's not about Africans. They know it is a war between USA and Russia or China from competition. They know it clear. So you see it. Why they couldn't say, why they never focus on ECWA, but instead they focus on US and Russia. So this could be another proxy war between US and Russia. Why they didn't say this could be war between ECWA and Niger? Why they couldn't say that? Why they didn't ask that question? Because they themselves know it is not about ECWA. They know ECWA is not an organization. ECWA is an organization, a puppet organization from Europe and America. They know ECWA going to invade Niger. It is not ECWA. I mean, you watch a video where the guy was saying nothing changed. They want constitutional order. And the same ECWA representative said they want constitutional order. So ECWA is speaking from her master. So you see, that why they couldn't say, the journalists couldn't say the war is between ECWA and Niger, but it says so this could be another war, proxy war between Russia and USA. Do you see? Now you understand why the topic say Africa won't be used as the next Ukraine to save NATO. Now you see what is going on. That is why I said I'm not bringing articles. I will bring videos so that you can see, so that we can listen to the horse's mouth, and then we can analyze it and see. So now you understand. Now you understand the invasion of Niger. It is not ECWA. It is not ECWA where ECWA does not have the power. It is America that is pushing ECWA because ECWA is a puppet. ECWA has been bought. ECWA was bought during the Liberian Civil War, and ECWA sat down and watched. Like I said, we have come to, we have learned it. It was America that brought ECWA. Do you know that the Victoria Kneeling, do you know what she went in Niger? She went to brave the joint government. She went to brave those leaders, and the leader refused to see her. She carried billions of dollars to bribe those people to step down and to reinstate Bazoo. And the people refused the $1 billion she carried, and the people refused to meet her. Yes, she carried money. She carried money because she thought, that is why a lot of folks, African, we should start dealing with this old generation, these old folks. We should start dealing with them to be our African leaders. But she went to meet those young men, and those men refused and said, we don't want to see you. We don't need your money. We are talking about freedom here. Victoria Lenin, she carried billions of dollars in Niger to bribe. Is that, you say you want constitutional order, why should you go and bribe someone? Is that not corruption? America is the #1 corrupt nation in the world. Yes. She carried billions of dollars. Joe Biden, the Congress, gave Victoria Nuland billions of dollars to go to Niger to bribe those military leaders. And you are dealing with a military leader. You think you're just going to bribe them just like that, especially young folks in their 35, in their 40. You think you're going to bribe them? They are military leaders. You're not going to bribe them like Tinubu, who want to open bank account for his great-grandchildren before he died, because he's already dead. So he want to open bank account for his great-grandchildren before he go in his grave, because he got limited time to live, so he don't care. But let's see the Africans that ECO are going to kill. Let's see what Africans say. And first of all, you see how dumb and stupid African leaders are. I mean, some, especially African, and the African leaders support ECO, they are so dumb and stupid. Look at what's happening. After this happened, right? You know, anytime things happen, America will go in for citizen, remove of citizen, right? Europe go in and remove of citizen. All of them, they remove their citizen. And then now, when none of their citizens are there, then they tell Africans to go kill one another. After Europe and America remove their citizens, then now they are asking Africa to go wage war. Why Europe couldn't leave her citizens? Why America could not have left her citizens there so that they can all die? But you remove your citizens and then you call it for war. You see how dumb and stupid these people are? ECOWAS leader, those that support ECOWAS, they are so dumb and they are so stupid. They got mud in their brain. They are very senseless. But this is what, you know, what you're about to see here, right? You know, these people, these African leaders that support ECOWAS, they are very stupid. They are stupid. You know, Macky Sall of Senegal have ordered his people, have ordered Senegalese, Africans, and other Africans to leave Niger because they are about to wage war on Niger. So Macky Sall is asking people who are from Senegal to go and write down their name to go to the embassy so that they can be airlifted. You asking another Africans to leave and man, you see how stupid it is? When the war was in Ukraine, when the war started, did you see any European nation telling her citizens, if you are from Europe, from England, leave? No, they didn't do that. If you are from Poland, I mean, European nation went in as European nation to take everybody out. When they were denying African, even their pet, European, their pets, they said their pet were valued than African life. African, look, African leaders, look, African leaders that support ECOWAS, they are so stupid. When the war took place in Ukraine, when they brought their buses, their transportation means to airlift or to take away their people, they said Africans should not get on a bus, should not get on a train. Their pet, their dog, their cat were valued over African life. They said their dog should be on a plane, on a boat, on a train, on the buses, but not Africans. and then Africans want to go and kill their brothers, Africans, for the same people that say their dog life were valued than African life. Their pet dog were valued than African life. The same word they used on us during slavery. They said Africans were 3/5 of a lesser human being. They used our same words on us recently when they said their dog life were better than African. Here it is, stupid equal leaders want to go and wage war on another African nation. Is that not stupidity?
It doesn't make sense. Like that lady said, we've been here for years. Our children are born here in Niger. Our husbands are here in Niger. So what do you want us to do? Do you want us to die with them? We're ready to die with them.
On se sent à l'aise. Et notre président même, il est au courant. À chaque fois qu'il vient au Niger, la communauté sénégalaise va le voir et on l'a dit qu'on a la paix ici au Niger. Nos dirigeants, ils ne devraient pas attendre pour qu'on sorte, pour qu'ils fassent sortir, communiquer avec nous. C'est pas normal. On dit qu'on nous a envoyé des avions et chacun n'a qu'à inscrire sa carte d'identité. Tout ça, c'est faux.
Okay, so we don't want your politics. Okay, basically they sent people from Senegal. They sent them aeroplanes so they can jump into planes and go back to Senegal. Meaning we are coming to attack Niger. So if you don't want to be part of the people that are going to be victims, go write your name down to the embassy. We're going to send an aeroplane to take you back to Niger. They say we don't want that. We're going to stay here. You see that level of solidarity.
Did you know that you could get $50,000 to over $150,000 of investment capital at 0%?
It's beautiful.
C'est faux. Ce n'était pas vrai. Mais vraiment, nous, si on nous tue, même on n'a qu'à nous tuer ici au Niger.
If you want to kill us, you can kill us here in Niger. Unbelievable.
Des Nigériens, on connaît le Niger, on a grandi au Niger, on a resté au Niger. C'est un pays musulman, un pays croyant qui aime surtout les Sénégalais. Hein? Surtout nous les Sénégalais. On remercie vraiment les Nigériens et on est derrière eux. Vive le Niger.
And this is beautiful. I mean, a lot of people in many countries, when you find yourself in a situation like this and your country say, okay, go to the embassy and write your name down. So when we send an aeroplane, you can board and go back to your country. What are you going to do? Are you going to stay? No, tell me the truth. You're not going to stay. You're going to go back to your country, right? These people have decided to stay. This is the love of Ubuntu. This is the real Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the real depth of Africa. Love for your brothers. So if you want to hurt people from Niger, you could hurt us too. Unbelievable.
Intervention de la CEDEAO, nous, la diaspora sénégalaise au Niger, on est totalement contre. Parce que le peuple nigérien et le peuple sénégalais ne font qu'un.
We are tired and we are against ECOWAS intervention in Niger because as Senegalese and people from Niger are same people. We are brothers.
Nous sommes tous des Africains et nous sommes très bien accueillis au niveau du Niger. Donc on n'a pas de problème. On ne voudrait pas que des chefs d'État se réunissent et prennent des décisions qui vont impacter négativement sur nos conditions de vie et qui peuvent impacter négativement sur le peuple nigérien qui est un peuple ami et frère.
À l'ambassade du Sénégal, lieu d'aboutissement de la marche, les ressortissants sénégalais, par le biais du secrétaire général de leur association, a remis un mémorandum à l'ambassadeur.
I mean, the people, they've gone to see the ambassador. We're going to talk about Nigeria just now, okay? Don't go, okay? People from Nigeria also walked in the street of Nigeria to contest this action of ECOWAS. Yes, they walked in the street of Nigeria to say, no, you're not going to attack Niger. Let's continue with Senegal.
Et au coup d'État du 26 juillet au Niger, la CEDEAO et l'IMOA ont décidé de poser des sanctions à l'endroit du Niger.
So this is just a gentleman. He's the head of a group of people. They went all the way to their own embassy to say, you are our embassy, but in this country, you are not creating mayhem. We will not authorize that. You see the level of patriotism, the level of love, of consideration. There's no, oh, you from the different country. No, they understand they are all Africans first. We are Africans. Before countries came into existence, there were people, there were clans, there were tribes, there were a group of people. That should be stronger than the country. It's not about you being Kenyan, me being Ugandan, the other being Congolese or Burundian. It's about being a human being, understanding your brother is African, your brother just like you, who goes through the same difficulties, the same issues, just like you.
La communauté sénégalaise vivant au Niger a constaté avec regret l'engagement du gouvernement du Sénégal à participer à l'exécution de ces sanctions infligées à notre pays d'accueil, le Niger, nous mettant dans une situation inconfortable. Face à cette situation, nous, communauté sénégalaise vivant au Niger, sommes réunis ce jour 17 août 2023 devant notre ambassade pour dire non à des sanctions lourdes contre le Niger, oui à une solution diplomatique, oui à une CEDEAO des peuples. La communauté sénégalaise a toujours vécu dans la quiétude et la tranquillité au Niger. Vive le Niger, vive la paix au Niger, vive la CEDEAO des peuples. Que Dieu bénisse le Niger et les peuples vivant sur le territoire nigérien. Amin.
Recevant des mains du SG de l'Association des ressortissants sénégalais au Niger, l'ambassadeur a indiqué qu'il transmettra le mémorandum à qui de droit.
J'ai bien pris acte, bien pris note de...
And that's the ambassador of Senegal in Niger.
Général, du mémorandum que vous avez remis. Et je voudrais vous assurer et vous rassurer sur le fait que ce mémorandum sera dès aujourd'hui transmis à qui de droit, ça veut dire aux autres autorités sénégalaises. Ça, je peux vous l'assurer.
And the t-shirt with the lady says, "We Senegalese are behind people from Niger. We are together."
Et quand je dis que ça sera transmis aux hautes autorités sénégalaises, je dis bien aux hautes autorités sénégalaises.
À travers cette marche, les ressortissants sénégalais expriment ainsi leur solidarité et leur attachement à leur seconde patrie, le Niger, terre d'accueil et d'hospitalité.
Bravo! This is what we want to see. This is the Africa we want to see. Those flags mean nothing. Those maps and cards mean absolutely nothing. Because the bottom line, if you look well, you see most of the flags are being changed. There were no flags before 1884. There were no flags. There were no country named Nigeria, country named Cameroon, country named Benin, country named Kenya. No, there were people existing in those places. There were human beings staying in those places. Clans, tribes, people, human beings marrying each other, loving one another. A person would come from a space named Kenya today that was not Kenya at the past, but would go marry somebody next to Burundi. They were just human beings. Somebody will come from what you call Cameroon today, will go all the way to what you call Nigeria and marry somebody. And somebody from what you call Nigeria will go to Benin and marry somebody. There was no, I'm Nigerian, I'm Cameroonian. Colonialism brought that into Africa. We were just people. That's why you see people from the same tribe in one country and the other. You are cousins. You are the same people. You need to prioritize that first. Support one another. Hold the hand of each other. Let's be the same people like we've always been in the past. I salute people from Senegal. I salute people from Nigeria who walked down the street of Nigeria, refusing the attack over Niger. Because in Nigeria, you get people that you call Fulani. And Fulani people, you find them in Niger too. They're the same people. Now, you tell me the Fulani, are they Nigerians or are they from Niger? No. Fulani are in Nigeria. Fulani are also in Niger. Are they Nigerian or they are from Niger? You see? So the people are stronger than countries. The same thing you will see in many countries. You see the same people in Rwanda and in Congo, the same people in Congo and Brazzaville, the same people in Nigeria and Benin. Some of the people in South Africa, some of the people you'll find in northern South Africa, meaning Zimbabwe, it's the same tribes. You can refuse that as much as you like. You can deny as much as you like, but that's the reality. Some of your uncles come from different places of Africa. Even if today people want to be selfish and act in a certain type of way, that's the reality of it. The sooner we accept it, the easier it gets for us. We can only be strong together as a team. We can only be strong together as a family. We can only be strong together as a people. Look at Europe, France, Belgium, Germany, Scandinavia. They're all together. They're the same people. They have euros. That's why they're strong. Nobody can break them. The United States of America has many states. I know it's not the same thing, but that's what it is. We can only be strong together, like said Gaddafi. Thank you very much, people. I appreciate you. Leave a comment. It's always
So that I said that. So Ekwa going to Niger, this is what they're going to see, and this is what they're going to do. And that's African they're going to kill. Because first of all, they're not going to kill American. American have withdrawn all citizens, have later all citizens. European have later all citizens. And you see, Africa, this is what we always suffer. Because we are not together, we are not united. When the stuff happened in Ukraine, for Africans to even get African out of Ukraine, it was difficult. These Africans that were there, they had to struggle on their own. At the end, who have to rescue them? It was Russia that have to rescue Africans from Ukraine. You cannot even rescue your own citizens when things happen. It becomes difficult to go and rescue your citizens when things happen. But when America sends you to go kill your citizens, you go. But when Africans were suffering in Ukraine, trying to get out of Ukraine, did you ask America to go and free African, to go and airlift African? No, you did not ask America. Even if you go have asked America, America was never going to do it. But America went there and took our citizens out. The Europeans went there and took all their citizens and all the Ukrainians. But your citizens, Africa and Ukraine, some of them died there. Some of them were humiliated. Some of them were naked. We saw video. When they went to Poland, the Polish naked them. The Polish naked our women. Our women, our mothers, the Polish naked them to see if they have weapons on them. These are women crying when they naked them. You went for them not. At the end, it was Russia that went and freed Africa from Ukraine. It is a sin America today coming to you, telling you to go find your own brothers and sisters. But when yesterday, America could not free African from Ukraine. Yesterday, it was their own brothers and sisters that were trying to cross to Spain when Spain closed their border. When they were killed to the Moroccan border between Morocco and Spain, when they shot them there, they killed them. African leaders said nothing. You never went there with a plane to go for them. America never spoke. America sat down. But they didn't see that as violation of human rights. When Africans are dying 24/7 on the sea to look for a better life, Aqua, you have the resources, right? You never use those resources to go for Africans that die on the sea just to cross to Europe to live a better life. You never spoke about it. You never asked America to go and help Africans. But did you see when few Americans die on what they call Titanic, they use billions of dollars to go look for 3 or 4 people. Billions. They use it to go in the sea to die, to go look for those people. But when Africans die on the sea, they don't make world news. They don't make news. They don't want to show it. You stupid, dumb African leaders sitting on the continent, when your people are dying 24/7, you don't have plane or nothing to go free them. But when America said go kill, that's the time you ready and say, we have the manpower. We have the resources. We can do it. Isn't that complete nonsense? Now watch the last video. That would just be entertainment. To see the reaction of Africans. Okay, these are young black men sat down and broke down, okay, into pieces how Europe and America react to Africans, how they want to see Africa. Watch it and see. That is just for entertainment now.
You know, in a way, that's not democracy. There's been mixed reactions from around the world to the coup in Niger. Now, we're going to explore the reactions of CNN, see who they've decided to bring on, how they react to this, how they analyze the news, and react to their reaction. Let's get into it.
There are some people who do support President Bazoum in Niger, but you have a lot of people who would rather have a military takeover, would rather have the democratically elected president ousted if it means undoing its ties to its former colonial power. That's what people would rather, which I find fascinating.
When she says she finds it fascinating, she means completely shocking. Completely shocking that, you know, the desire to untangle yourself from, when is it, 1960 Niger got independence. We're now in 2023. So 63 years of post-colonial, you know, subjugation by the former colonial power. you know, the idea that the Nigerians would want to move away from this is completely, what did she use?
Shocking.
Shocking. No, she said she finds it fascinating. Fascinating.
They want to break the yoke. So people who've been chained all this time, and when the moment they break the chain, is fascinating. Like, it should be expected.
Yeah.
Such as it should be fascinating that it has taken this long, maybe.
Yes, exactly. It's also fascinating that, you know, 63 years on, 2/3 of people from Niger have no access to electricity. It's also fascinating that, you know, 1/3 of their uranium supplied to France is from Niger, but it's the second poorest country in the world. It's also fascinating that it's also the second poorest country in the world. So how has it benefited from these so-called democratic process that they're now trying to overturn?
So something else, I've noticed the kind of, say, obsession with electoral democracy, because she admits that, you know, there's plenty of people who showed up to support the military, but then again kind of discards that method of, you know, exercising the democracy in favor of the ballot. So I think it's dishonest for an American in wherever that place is,
Washington,
yeah, to, like, you know, hold Nigerians to a standard even Americans themselves, you know, don't follow.
And also the issue of, like, you know, Democrats as a concept on its own, people have to understand, say, it should be a means to an end. So just the electoral democrats, where people get an opportunity to go to the ballot every 5 or 4 years, if they're not seeing the actual material benefits, their lives improving, then you don't expect them to still want to respect the so-called tenets of democracy. So somehow it reflects to say, what are the conditions on the ground? So that's what you should be looking to say, what has driven people to disregard the much talked about democracy?
And adding on to that, like, you know, what's democracy? You know, the rule of the people, for the people, by the people. When a government, you know, signs deals that give away the country's resources for almost nothing to France, the people don't benefit it. That's not a government for the people. So, you know, in a way, that's not democracy. But when people come and, you know, express their desire to see France leave, and you have the military exercising the will of the people, that sounds like more of democracy than showing up to the ballot every 5 years, as Nzala has said.
Yeah, it's bourgeoisie democracy, and, you know, you can't eat the ballot paper. You need real development and real infrastructure. Let's get into this and see what else she's got to say.
Also, on top of that, I mean, you know, France has said, listen, well, you know, we're going to sort of limit our cooperation with Niger, or sort of reevaluate our partnership with Niger when it comes to humanitarian aid and that sort of thing, which of course means that it's the poorest Nigerians that will suffer. Mm-hmm. But how hard is it to undo?
Sorry, folks, I just want to give a disclaimer. First of all, we don't have copyright to the video playing. All right.
Do a coup. You know, France is obviously trying to wield a lot of financial pressure on Niger, hoping to turn the tide. But really, once a coup is done, I mean, aren't we past the point of no return here?
It's really challenging to say that right now. So far, we are several days into this. The coup kicked off on Wednesday. No one has actually seen President Bazoum, other than a few photos and some communications with folks like the Secretary of State here in the United States. So because we haven't seen him, I think that there's potentially still conversations taking place inside the presidential palace with those who carried out the coup and with the folks who are still technically holding the reins of power. That said, I just want to go back to one of the comments you made about the popularity of the coup. In Niamey, there is certainly a lot of chatter right now about whether this is popular or not. Outside Niamey, which is 18 million people and growing in a 20 million person country, you still have a lot of, there's a dichotomy of who's in support of the Bazoum administration and who's in support of the putschists. So it really is split. Niamey just happens to be a lot of capital, the people who lived in the capital are political elites. And those political elites have always kind of had a lot of tension with Bazoum, someone who was always kind of perceived as a political outsider in many ways.
Political outsider in many ways. She hasn't even listed one. One of the ways, so it would have been nice if you're going to bring up such a point, you need to back it up with a few examples of what makes him a political outsider.
And also, I've noting her first question is, how do we undo the coup? Not, you know, why do Nigerian people support this coup? What has French-Niger partnerships, held for the people of Niger? The first question of this liberal is, how do we undo the coup? Yes. Not even, investigating the motivation behind the coup.
Yes, and she also said, well, now France is going to roll back on the partnership, so people from Niger are going to miss out. And yeah, you have to ask yourself, what type of partnership is it when one party gets all the benefits and the other party loses out on every conceivable, aspect? It's the kind of partnership that you get between the rope and the hanging man. Now, what I found most interesting about this is she says the people in Niamey are the political elite. Now, for a country that's the second poorest country in the world, that's a lot of political elites.
So it means all those people we're seeing on the streets, the thousands, they are all from the political elite.
Yeah, they're the middle classes. They all drove in. They all had drivers drive them in, park up,
just show up,
and then just show up.
And crazy. And also, number one, first of all, how would she know? First of all, they say the people outside Niamey, probably they're not in support of the coup. How does she know? So it's the whole issue.
Don't you know she works for a think tank?
Oh, she works for a think tank.
Works for a think tank in Washington D.C.
In Washington D.C.
Of course, she knows everything.
Maybe she has been to Africa for a safari, so she knows, or she's got a friend from Africa, so she knows about these things. So it's also problematic of this issue of so-called experts who are usually brought on these international channels. So most of the time they find sometimes these people have never been to Africa. Two, these are people, maybe they spent a month in Africa at some 5-star hotel. They were meeting with local elites in the lobby and they had a few drinks. Then they think that they're African experts. Because if CNN was really serious about getting a proper perspective, they're in Washington, D.C., where it's a melting pot of people from many different countries. They could have gotten someone from Niger or even one of the countries in the region. They're going to get a much better perspective. But I think certain people, they believe that probably certain faces, I won't name what criteria I'm using, they are much more qualified to talk about these things. The public is much more likely to believe them than to get another person.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to bring it up, but since you brought it up, I have to. It's very interesting here that we have an African presenter interviewing a European American woman about a situation that's happened in Niger, in West Africa. It's just fascinating. How is this person the qualified expert? I checked her bio before we came in. So she's the head of a so-called non-government organization based in Washington, D.C. I have my suspicion that it's not really non-government organization and it has many links to the government, but who knows? I could be proven wrong. Let's watch the rest of this video and find out.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's mostly in the capital, Niamey, where we're seeing a lot of the coup supporters. Fine. Okay, that's a good point that you just made there. So we're also seeing in the capital, in Niamey, where we're getting a lot of pictures from, a lot of people waving Russian flags. I mean, there does seem to be a sort of pivot happening among some people away from France and I guess the United States as well. Obviously, we're talking about France here, and a pivot towards Russia. Russia's obviously going to want to capitalize on the instability. What will they want from Niger in return? This is obviously a country that is rich in resources, especially when it comes to uranium.
Mm-hmm. And their upcoming oil production, which is supposed to boom, although that might be on hold given the coup.
just on that. Do you hear the way she said that? Well, now, that the oil production is going to stop because of the coup. Are you guys sure you want to continue on this path? Mm-hmm. Just the way that just the little things that they drop.
And one other thing I noticed, when she talked about France, people maybe not wanting France, she didn't question what the French wanted from Niger. But because it's now Russia, one has to question to say what's in for the Russians. But for the West, nobody questions them because their motivations are always pure. They've never colonized Africa. They've never looted African countries. So we shouldn't. Yeah, they've never enslaved Africans. We've got no reason to be suspicious of the West. But the other powers, we should be suspicious of them.
They're going to capitalize off the insecurity. That's what she said. Yeah, it's true. I never even thought about that. There's no at all aspect of what France tries to get out of Niger for not only the 63 years since it's been independent, but the whole period during the colonial era.
It's not questioned.
William.
Yeah, I mean, basically it's the Russian question. And, coming from the US, they obviously have their interest in Niger. They have the biggest drone base in Niger, part of Africa, to safeguard American interests. The French are also there. Then question arises, look at the countries that are partnering with Russia, Burkina Faso, Mali. All of them, yes, they have an insurgency problem. But what drove them to going with Russia as a security partner? And just picking an example, in Syria, after Al-Assad was, faced with an ISIS onslaught, he called on the Russians. And today he has consolidated his position as Syria's president, and his country is whole due to the partnership, not like disqualifying the incredible sacrifices of the Syrians, but Russian help has also, played a part in them pushing back against the insurgents. So if African people see that taking place, why wouldn't they want to replicate it here? Compare it to wherever the US or France has been. There's the question, who has been saved by the West?
Great point, William. And yeah, let's just look at the other two countries that you just mentioned, Burkina Faso and Mali. Now, over the last 12 months, they've taken steps to remove French influence in their country. And why have they done this? People say, oh, they've kicked out French NGOs. They kicked out French NGOs because they realize these are, again, not non-government organizations. They're linked and working, hand in hand with the French state to destabilize the country, to further justify the French presence in the region. They kicked out French media. They go, stamping down on freedom of press. Again, the French media they kicked out, France 24, RFI. Again, France 24, I believe, interviewed the head of an insurgency, Al-Qaeda insurgency, that is, killing people, slaughtering people like sheep and goat on the streets, and they give them a platform. They would never do that to anyone that committed a terrorist act in the West.
Imagine Osama bin Laden after 9/11, probably on a Zoom call on CNN. Well, what's happening?
Or any people that, part of the Paris terrorist attacks. If you found their supporters or part of the group of the terrorist cell being interviewed on the BBC, they'd be super upset. So, this is all very important context, completely and purposely ignored by the mainstream media. And again, in Niger, it's a similar thing. They think that, okay, we have this insurgency problem. France has been saying it's been fighting this insurgency problem. The US is saying it's been supporting us with this insurgency problem. Yet we see no gains.
Leave alone no gains. It's actually gotten worse. In 2003, there were 23 deaths as a result of terrorism. Last year, it was 7,900. You have the Americans there with a $100 million drone base and 1,000 military personnel there. You have the French there with 1,500 people. Yet 7,900 Nigerians died last year from terrorism. So, if you have these foreign powers on your soil with the sole purpose of stopping terrorist, victims, or stopping people from dying as a result of terrorism, you have to ask yourself questions. What's not happening? Because, if you take another example, take Somalia, for example. Al-Shabaab came into, prominence in 2006 after the US encouraged Ethiopia to invade Somalia. That's what led to the rise of Al-Shabaab. And since then, supposedly, US and their local partners, Uganda, Kenya, have, supposedly been in Somalia to fight Al-Shabaab for over 14 years. This group is, only growing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, let's look further afield, Afghanistan.
Again, folks, as you can see, we are already discussed in some of the video we have watched. So you see these three gentlemen sitting here, right? Giving analysis of this whole terrorist group. And now, as you can see right here, they are even saying, what they are trying to say here actually is the United States or Europe, they are the ones supporting the jihadi. That's what they are saying here. And which is true, which of course we have seen from other video we have watched. Right? And they are saying, if I sense the presence of the West, jihadi or terrorist group have just increased. And look at the funny part about it, like the gentleman in the middle there. He said, do you think a terrorist will come and bomb America, kill American? And then all of a sudden, you see that same terrorist on CNN, and then CNN interviewing that terrorist. You think it will ever happen? It will never happen. So why will a terrorist kill in another country, kill? And then you see CNN interviewing that terrorist. Don't you think it raises an alarm of support from somewhere from the same damn people. Anyway, folks, I gotta go. We've been here for so long. I've been here since 1 o'clock and it's already 4:19. So we gotta go. I can't play the entire video, but it's very interesting. I played the whole thing before, but it's very great. And you know what, matter of fact, let me put a chat in there. It's a good video, and you know, they analyze things over there. And what made me so happy about this video is that to see Africans, right? I mean, being involved in things like this, and just sitting and watching how mainstream media narrate stories. When it comes to Africa, how they narrate it different. When it comes to Europe and America, how they narrate it different. When it comes to Africa, they don't really get time. They don't have time. Absolutely, they don't have time. They don't care. So I love it how these three gentlemen, it just proved our level of intelligence, our level of knowledge, okay, in this contemporary Africa, that we have come to understand Europe and America, they are liar, they are betrayer. I just love it. And that's why I love this video. And that's why I'm playing this video for you guys to see. I'm going to post the links because I got to go. So let me see if I can post the link in there. But it's a very great video. I'm telling you, it's very, very good. And you know, I love it because it shows that we are waking up. Okay? It shows that we are waking up. They may not be on platform of WCC, but at least they have their own platform, right? Where they can sit and be able to discuss and understand what Africa wants and understand what people think about Africa and how we Africans should be thinking differently now too. That's why I love this video. So if you have the time, I'm going to post it. You can watch it and see. I love it. It just proved that, you know, we are actually waking up. The masses of Africans are waking up. Yeah, but other than that, I have to go. That is today's presentation. Share, like, subscribe. So I will see you guys Saturday. By the way, we couldn't be on yesterday because Nkrumah wasn't feeling well. And Natasha too was traveling. I think she has something to do. I think so, or traveling or so. So, and I couldn't do it by myself yesterday and then do it today. So I was going to be too, you know, exhausted. So I couldn't really do it. So, but we'll see you guys. Hopefully this coming Saturday. Hopefully, you know, Nkrumah get better. He come back. So I will see you guys Saturday and also Sunday. Peace.